Chapter 255. Dongfang Du was very famous among the younger generation in the Nanshan region. He was much more famous than Gong Feiyu and Ding Yifan. Although Gong Feiyu and Ding Yifan were also young geniuses, they were much inferior to Dongfang Du. The three strongest young geniuses in the Nanshan region had entered the list at the age of 15. One could imagine how powerful and talented they were. This was especially so for Dongfang Du. In addition to his shocking talent and strength, his ruthless character was also one of the reasons why he was so famous. At this moment, he noticed Nie Tian's existence, which was definitely not a good thing for the latter. Nie Tian used the Red Dragon Soul to kill Gong Feiyu in an instant, but his expression was still calm. However, Duanmu Lu and his sister, who had witnessed the whole process, were completely stunned. They didn't react until Nie Tian walked up to them. "Benefactor, just now you." After a long while, Duanmu Lu came to his senses and looked at Nie Tian with a shocked expression. He was so shaky that he couldn't finish his words. Nie Tian smiled and said lightly, "Don't ask me how I did it, because I won't tell you even if you ask. Big brother Nie Tian, you're really amazing. You're even more amazing than my eldest senior brother. I really admire you." Duanmu Weiner looked at Nie Tian with admiration in her eyes. She held her young girl's heart in her hands and looked excited. Duanmu Lu was slightly taken aback. He knew that aside from their father, Duanmu Bai, the person his sister had idolized the most since she was young was their eldest senior brother, Chu Shifeng. Furthermore, when she was young, she had even said that she would be Chu Shifeng's wife when she grew up. Now that Nie Tian had appeared and directly replaced Chu Shifeng's position, it really made people speechless. However, Nie Tian was indeed very powerful. Duanmu Lu estimated that even Chu Shifeng might not be able to kill Gong Feiyu so easily. After all, he was the 9th genius on the Southern Mountain Domain's genius ranking. Chu Shifeng was the eldest direct disciple of Duanmu Bai, the Palace Lord of Qiankuan Palace, and ranked 3rd on the genius ranking of the Southern Mountain Territory. He was also a famous figure among the younger generation of the South Mountain region. However, at this moment, a faint laughter suddenly rang out. "Junior sister, do you really think he's better than me?" The voice was clear and bright, carrying a hint of a joking tone. Moreover, the person who spoke had a relaxed smile on his face. "Eldest senior brother." When Duanmu Weiner heard this voice, she suddenly jumped up in excitement. When she turned around to look, a handsome and tall figure of a young man came into view. "Eldest senior brother." Duanmu Lu was also quite surprised. Looking at the figure not far away, he smiled excitedly. The handsome young man was none other than the eldest senior brother of Duanmu Lu and Duanmu Weiner, the number 1 genius of Qiankuan Palace, Chu Shifeng. The two siblings never dreamed that they would meet Chu Shifeng in the bloody massacre ancient tomb. Duanmu Weiner immediately turned into a cheerful little bird. She skipped over and threw herself into Chu Shifeng's arms. "Junior sister." Chu Shifeng caressed Duanmu Weiner's beautiful hair with an indescribable complex look in his eyes. Duanmu Lu was obviously a little unhappy and said, "You're not a child anymore." "None of your business." Duanmu Weiner pouted, but she still got out of Chu Shifeng's arms. Looking at the smiling Chu Shifeng in front of him, Nie Tian could not help but frown slightly. Although this person seemed to be smiling and approachable, there was a trace of resentment in his eyes that was extremely difficult to detect. Yes, it was resentment. If it were not for the fact that Nie Tian had seen countless people, he would not have been able to detect the strange look in Chu Shifeng's eyes. "By the way, eldest senior brother, why are you here? Didn't father forbid you to come?" Duanmu Weiner suddenly thought of something and asked in surprise. Chu Shifeng smiled faintly and asked, "Didn't teacher forbid you to come too?" As he spoke, his eyes swept across Duanmu Lu and finally fell on Nie Tian. "I know, you also came here without telling father." Duanmu Weiner smiled excitedly, completely like a naive and cute little girl. However, Chu Shifeng was obviously not simple. He was not naive or cute at all. Instead, he was very gloomy, but he hid this gloominess perfectly. Nie Tian had just caught the look in Chu Shifeng's eyes when he looked at Duanmu Lu. Although there was a smile on Chu Shifeng's face, the viciousness in his eyes did not escape Nie Tian's sharp eyes. It was a vicious and malicious look, as if he could not wait to kill Chu Shifeng. Nie Tian smiled faintly at Chu Shifeng. Thinking of Chu Shifeng's identity, he immediately guessed some things. However, Duanmu and his sister were pure and innocent, so they did not notice Chu Shifeng's malicious intentions at all. Benefactor, this is my eldest senior brother, Chu Shifeng. He is ranked 3rd on the Southern Mountain Territory's genius list. He is also Weiner's idol. Duanmu Lu reacted and introduced. My name is Nie Tian. You should have heard of me. Nie Tian smiled faintly, but in his heart, he said, Duanmu Lu, you are too naive. You and your sister treat Chu Shifeng as your eldest senior brother, but your eldest senior brother treats you as his biggest enemy. Nie Tian guessed that Chu Shifeng's malicious intentions toward Duanmu Lu and his sister were mostly because of Qiankuan Palace. He was the first personal disciple of Duanmu Bai, but unfortunately, he was not his son. No matter how strong he was and how talented he was, the Qiankuan Palace still belonged to Duanmu Lu. As the eldest senior brother, he could only be a deputy palace lord at most. But if Duanmu Lu and his sister died in the bloody slaughtering ancient tomb, it would be different. If Duanmu lost his children for nothing, then the position of palace lord of Qiankuan Palace would be in the bag of his first personal disciple. Nie Tian guessed that Chu Shifeng risked his life to enter the bloody slaughtering ancient tomb in order to improve his strength as soon as possible, so that he could be recognized by Duanmu Bai. The appearance of Duanmu Lu and his sister in the bloody slaughtering ancient tomb was definitely a big surprise for Chu Shifeng. But unfortunately they had Nie Tian with them. If it weren't for Nie Tian, Chu Shifeng would have fallen out with him, and Duanmu Lu and his sister would have become 2 corpses. It had to be said that Nie Tian's mind was really terrifying. Just by looking at him, he could guess what Chu Shifeng was thinking. Chu Shifeng had just witnessed the scene of Nie Tian killing Gong Feiyu, so he was a little afraid of Nie Tian. At this moment, if it weren't for Nie Tian, he would have killed Duanmu and his sister. Of course, Chu Shifeng didn't know what Nie Tian was thinking. He smiled faintly and said, You are the Lord of Heaven Luo City. Of course I have heard of your name. The matter of the dragon blood martial meat has spread throughout the Nanshan region. Your name is now known by everyone. Chapter 256. Chu Shifeng was an intelligent man. He could faintly hear the hidden meaning in Nie Tian's words. He couldn't help but furrow his brows. A hint of coldness flashed across his face as he said indifferently, Nie Tian City Lord, what do you mean by this? I'm a little confused. Nie Tian smiled faintly and thought to himself, You're not confused. You heard it very clearly. His words just now were to remind Chu Shifeng that although Duanmu Lu and Duanmu Weiner were fools, there was still someone beside them who could see clearly. This was a direct warning to Chu Shifeng. If he wanted to touch the Duanmu siblings, he had to go through Nie Tian first. Brother Chu, there are some things that I don't want to say too clearly. It's enough for you and me to know. Nie Tian smiled calmly and didn't want to pay too much attention to Chu Shifeng. Chu Shifeng was very strong. He was actually at the 7th stage of the giant spirit realm. Nie Tian felt that even if he used his star soul, he wouldn't have much confidence. Otherwise, he would have killed this fellow with a single palm strike. Similarly, Chu Shifeng was also afraid of Nie Tian's strength. Although the latter only had the strength of the 3rd stage of the Wanxiang realm on the surface, from the way he instantly killed Gong Feiyu, it was obvious that ordinary martial artists couldn't judge Nie Tian's strength. Benefactor, do you have some misunderstanding about eldest senior brother? Duanmu Lu wasn't too stupid. He could tell that the atmosphere between Nye Tian and Chu Shifeng wasn't right, so he stepped forward to speak. However, he was interrupted by Nye Tian halfway through his sentence. Nye Tian waved his hand and smiled faintly. Whether it's a misunderstanding or not, we'll find out in the future. Duanmu Lu was too stupid. The other party wanted to kill him, but he was still busy explaining things to them. On the other side, Duanmu Weiner was even more stupid than Duanmu Lu. She couldn't see anything. She giggled and said, "Big brother Nye Tian, now that my big brother is here, we don't have to be afraid of anyone. Let's go find the ghost face gate now." Nye Tian's mouth twitched slightly. Fortunately, this girl had not forgotten about the ghost face gate. Ghost face gate. Chu Shifeng was slightly stunned and said, "Are you talking about the gate we used to enter the ancient bloody tomb?" "Yes." Duanmu Weiner nodded obediently. "Why are you looking for it?" Chu Shifeng asked. Duanmu Weiner glanced at Nye Tian and blurted out, "Big brother Nye Tian said that there is a rank 9 emperor weapon there." Nye Tian's face was full of black lines. He thought in his heart, "When did I say that?" And Nye Tian suddenly thought of something at this time. He frowned and used his divine sense to explore the true Ji crystal. Rui Qianyu was originally only tens of kilometers away from Nye Tian. She should have arrived by now. Why wasn't she here yet? Rui Qianyu's strength was far above Chu Shifeng. If she was by his side, Duanmu and his sister would be much safer. After scanning the true Ji crystal with his divine sense, Nye Tian quickly found Rui Qianyu's whereabouts. In a hidden valley, many martial artists were fighting fiercely, as if they were fighting for a very precious thing. Rui Qianyu was outside the valley, watching quietly. She frowned from time to time, as if she was thinking about whether to enter the valley or not. Nye Tian couldn't help but be a little surprised. This was an illusion. Not only was the surrounding illusion fake, but the heaven and earth spiritual power in the space was also fake. Even the natural treasures that those martial artists were fighting for were fake. Rui Qianyu's 9-color pupils could naturally see through everything, but she obviously noticed something unusual at this time, so she stopped and hesitated. As soon as Nye Tian sent his divine sense into the valley, he discovered that there was a crimson fruit growing on a cliff above the valley, which was exuding a mouth-watering aura of spiritual power. Furthermore, there seemed to be spiritual power rippling around the fruit, which seemed to contain some kind of mysterious power. What was even more peculiar was that below the fruit, there were green vines slowly spreading out, growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. As the vines spread, layers of ice flowers formed on the cliff. Rui Qianyu's 9-color pupils were staring at the crimson fruit on the cliff, and the fruit was slowly growing with the rapid growth of the green vines. When Nye Tian saw this scene, his nerves suddenly tightened. Damn! It's actually the celestial ice-cold fruit. Nye Tian couldn't hide the shock in his heart. He was sensing everything in the true Ji crystal at this time, so what he saw in front of him was the real scene, and not an illusion. The martial artists in the valley were actually fighting over a real heavenly treasure. Celestial ice-cold fruit, an 8th-tier medicinal material, not only contained extremely abundant heaven and earth spiritual power, but also contained some power of rules between heaven and earth. Ordinary martial artists could not only improve their strength, but also improve their martial Dao talent. This kind of heaven-defying treasure actually appeared in the Bloody Slaughter ancient tomb. It was really incredible. The celestial ice-cold fruit has a cold attribute, and the blood chi of the Bloody Slaughter ancient tomb is also bone-chilling. If the celestial ice-cold fruit grows in this kind of environment, the yin chi would be even stronger. If an ordinary martial artist were to eat it, not only would they not be able to absorb the medicinal efficacies of the celestial ice-cold fruit, they might even die from the medicinal backlash. Nye Tian guessed, his brow wrinkling slightly. "Benefactor, did you find something?" Duanmu Lu saw Nye Tian staring at the true Ji crystal in a daze and asked. "Damn! Nie Tian let out a strange cry and shouted, "Come with me!" He suddenly realized that Rui Qianyu was interested in the celestial ice-cold fruit. With Rui Qianyu's strength, even if she was a true element boundary cultivator, she might not be able to resist the cold medicinal efficacies of the celestial ice-cold fruit. Nie Tian's figure was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had already leapt 100 meters away. Duanmu Lu and the others did not know what had happened, but they all quickly followed. Outside the mountain valley, Rui Qianyu hesitated for a moment, but in the end she was still tempted. Her figure flashed, and she appeared directly in the mountain valley. Nie Tian's guess was right. Rui Qianyu had indeed seen that the world in front of her was a huge illusion. However, she did not know how to break through this illusion. Although she had her 9 color pupils, she could only see through the illusion, not break it. Rui Qianyu saw many cultivators desperately fighting for the blood mist along the way, so of course she was not interested. However, the celestial ice-cold fruit in the mountain valley in front of her was a real-world treasure, and its attribute was the same as her 9 color pupil's blue pupil, so she was tempted. Rui Qianyu thought that if she swallowed the celestial ice-cold fruit, she would most likely be able to open the second pupil of her 9 color pupils. Although this would make the power of her 9 color pupils even more violent, she couldn't care less about it. From the moment she opened the first pupil of her 9 color pupils, she was destined to be unable to turn back. The battle in the mountain valley was so fierce that no one noticed the arrival of Rui Qianyu. In fact, with Rui Qianyu's strength, among all the people who had entered the bloody slaughter ancient tomb, she was definitely a peak existence. If she wanted to snatch something, it would be a piece of cake. Rui Qianyu did not even look at the others, and with a light tap of her foot, her figure appeared at the edge of the cliff. Chapter 257. Rui Qianyu's pair of ice-blue eyes stared at the heaven ice-cold fruit for a long time. Although she sensed an extremely dangerous signal, she still reached out her hand. She was too eager to increase her strength, so even though she knew that the heaven ice-cold fruit was extremely dangerous, she still wanted to take the risk. Just as Rui Qianyu's finger was about to touch the heaven ice-cold fruit, a cry of alarm sounded. "Xiao!" Immediately, a red figure, like a red lightning, flashed past. Rui Qianyu was slightly stunned. She didn't see clearly what flew past her eyes. "Not bad." Nie Tian's figure immediately appeared. Seeing that little 9 had already grasped the heaven ice-cold fruit in his hand, he instantly let out a sigh of relief. The heaven ice-cold fruit was an 8th-tier medicinal herb. Adding on the fact that it had absorbed the evil blood qi of the land of blood massacre for a long period of time, the coldness of its medicinal properties was hard to estimate. Nie Tian guessed that if he had arrived just one step later, Rui Qianyu would have been instantly frozen into a block of ice when she touched the heaven ice-cold fruit. The heaven ice-cold fruit was a treasure of heaven and earth. Even if a pill master obtained it, he would have to be very careful in handling it. At least, he would have to refine it in the pill cauldron for 10 days to half a month before the cold energy could be completely refined. Nie Tian. Rui Qianyu saw that the person who came was Nie Tian, and couldn't help but be stunned. But the next moment, she suddenly saw that the green vine that had lost the heaven ice-cold fruit instantly withered, and then an extremely cold energy exploded. Crack, crack, crack. A crisp sound rang in the air, and countless ice shards appeared in the air. Rui Qianyu's reaction was extremely fast, and she retreated, but that bone-chilling cold still made her heart palpitate. The heaven ice-cold fruit's vine was already so abnormal, let alone the heaven ice-cold fruit itself. Thinking of this, Rui Qianyu couldn't help but feel a wave of fear. Luckily, Nie Tian acted in time, or else the consequences would be unimaginable. Yeah. At this time, the little 9 in midair emitted a strange sound. Its scarlet-red pupils stared at the scarlet-red fruit in its claws. Its large eyes flashed a few times, and without the slightest hesitation, it swallowed it. F*CK. Nie Tian couldn't help exclaiming when he saw this scene. Was this little thing crazy? Was the celestial ice-cold fragrance fruit something that could be eaten just like that? Awoo! After swallowing the heavenly ice-cold fragrance fruit, little Nine suddenly let out a strange cry. Then, its little claws clutched its stomach, as if it was extremely uncomfortable, painfully rolling about in midair. Duanmu Lu, Duanmu Wainer, and Chu Shifeng soon arrived. Duanmu Lu looked at little Nine, who was in unbearable pain in midair, and asked in astonishment, "The one who captured the Mirage Snow Fox was this little fellow?" Chu Shifeng, on the other hand, stared at the 9 extreme chaos beasts. He actually felt the primordial spirit in his body throbbing slightly, and a wave of fear rose in his heart. At this time, the martial artists in the valley reacted as well. They looked at the 9 extreme chaos beast and shouted in panic. "Damn it! Someone snatched the fruit! It's that little thing. It ate the fruit. The fruit hasn't been digested completely. Let's kill it and drink its blood." The people below had become extremely irritable because they had absorbed too much blood chi. They were all eager to attack the 9 extreme chaos beasts. Bang! At this time, the 9 extreme chaos beast's body suddenly emitted a shocking cold chi. The cold chi was bone-chilling, and it directly froze the air within a 10-meter radius. Hey! The 9 extreme chaos beast's little mouth opened, but the scene froze at this moment. It was directly frozen, and the space within a 10-meter radius froze into a huge ice ball. Gulp! Nie Tian couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. The yin chi of the celestial ice-cold fragrance fruit was indeed terrifying. It could actually freeze space directly. However, what surprised Nie Tian even more was that he felt that not only did little Nine's aura not weaken, but it was also increasing rapidly. He took a closer look and realized that little Nine, who was in the center of the ice ball, was like a black hole that devoured everything. It was crazily absorbing the yin chi of the celestial ice-cold fragrance fruit. What's more, after the yin chi entered the 9 extreme chaos beast's body, it actually directly transformed into heaven and earth spirit energy and was perfectly absorbed by it. Heaven-devouring soul. These 4 words immediately came to Nie Tian's mind. The 9 chaos transformations were born from nothingness. The 9 extreme chaos beast contained the 9 extreme bodies and the heaven-devouring soul. In Nie Tian's previous life, the primordial spirit 9 extreme beasts had an extremely high resistance to all kinds of elemental powers. The 9 extreme chaos beast in this life was a strengthened version of the 9 extreme beast. Not only did it have the 9 extreme bodies, but it also had the heaven-devouring soul that was nurtured by the power of the stars. When the 9 extreme chaos beast was still in the chaos origin embryo, it directly swallowed the scarlet flame's tongue as nourishment. Now that it had broken out of the embryo, its heaven-devouring soul was even more perverse. All of a sudden, Nie Tian felt some movement within the chaos origin coffin. For some unknown reason, there was an abundance of heaven and earth spirit energy, and he couldn't help but let out a strange cry. This! Nie Tian was so shocked that he was completely speechless. However, he immediately understood what was going on. The 9 extreme chaos beast was born from the chaos origin coffin, and it was equivalent to a part of Nie Tian's body. The heaven and earth spirit energy that this little fellow absorbed was rapidly transformed into Nie Tian's body. After coming to this realization, Nie Tian was completely dumbfounded. If he allowed the 9 extreme chaos beast to devour more natural treasures in the future, wouldn't he be able to absorb all of them? That little thing is frozen. This is a good opportunity. Let's attack together and kill it. Just as Nie Tian was feeling extremely excited, the martial artists below were already on the verge of going crazy. Someone shouted and took the initiative to attack. Boom! A punch was thrown out, and a powerful fist shadow rushed towards the ice ball in the air. When the others saw this, they all made their move. At once, countless dazzling martial skills appeared, and they were all aimed at the huge ice ball. Damn! When Nye Tian saw that the situation wasn't looking good, he immediately stabbed out with his sword, and a 10-meter-long sword shadow came crashing down. The huge ice ball was filled with the energy of the heaven ice-cold fragrance fruit. However, to the 9 extreme chaos beast, it was rich heaven and earth spirit energy. Once it was destroyed and dispersed into the air, it would be a waste. Nye Tian slashed down with his sword, and the huge sword shadow came crashing down. Although it was very imposing, there were too many martial artists below. When they joined forces to attack, it was like a landslide or a tsunami. It was not something that Nye Tian could block with one sword. Big senior brother, hurry up and attack! When Duanmu Weiner saw this, she hurriedly shouted. However, Chu Shifeng was like a block of wood, watching coldly. If Nye Tian died, that would be to his liking. As long as Nye Tian died, Chu Shifeng could find an opportunity to get rid of Duanmu Lu and Duanmu Weiner, these two thorns in his eyes. Humph. Just as all the attacks were about to hit the huge ice ball, a cold voice was heard. Rui Qianyu raised her palm and calmly slapped it down. Boom! The force of her palm was like a mountain collapsing. A huge handprint appeared in the air, blocking all the attacks. Chapter 258. Boom! The huge palm print in the sky fell down like a small mountain, causing the entire valley to tremble. The all-out attack of a true energy realm martial artist was unimaginably terrifying. Suddenly, the valley was filled with ghostly wails and wolf howls. Under Rui Qianyu's attack, hundreds of martial artists couldn't fight back at all. Rocks flew everywhere in the valley, and dust filled the air. When the dust had settled, the whole valley was covered with bloody corpses. One attack. Just one attack. Rui Qianyu killed hundreds of martial artists. Among the hundreds of martial artists, most of them were in the manifestation realm, but there were a few giant spirit martial artists. Nye Tian estimated that Rui Qianyu's attack was even more powerful than Tong Fu's hammer of destruction. These martial artists had absorbed too much blood qi. Even if they weren't killed by Rui Qianyu, they would become the corpse Luo Demon Lord's primordial spirit sacrifice. The Duanmu siblings were completely stunned by the power of Rui Qianyu's attack. Who would have thought that this girl, who looked only a few years older than them, could be so terrifying when she was angry? Even Chu Shifeng's expression froze for a few seconds. He thought to himself, this person is so strong. Even I might not be able to take that attack. She looks like she's only about 20 years old. When did the 3,000 small worlds have such an abnormal young martial artist? With her strength, she can crush almost any martial artist under the age of 30 in the southern mountain region. Maybe only the Genius List's #1 can compete with her. The Martial Gatherings Merchant Union's Genius List recorded all the martial artists who had entered the Merchant Union's arena. Many martial artists disdained to fight for this ranking, so there were many hidden geniuses who did not enter the Genius List. Take Rui Qianyu for example. With her strength and talent, she could easily enter the top 3 of the Southern Mountain Region's Genius List. Even in the 3,000 small worlds, Rui Qianyu's talent could be ranked in the top 10. Nye Tian even believed that Rui Qianyu's talent was not below that of Mou, one of the 3 great evildoers of Xumi Lingdu. Although Mou's strength was already at the true element 9th layer, and Rui Qianyu's strength was only at the true element 1st layer. The environment in which the two grew up was different. Mou was born in the Mo family, one of the 4 great clans. As the legitimate son of the Mo family's patriarch, he naturally did not lack anything. From childhood to adulthood, he had all kinds of cultivation resources. What spirit dawn, spirit arrays, cultivation rooms, yuan crystals, and other things were absolutely more common than cabbages. Rui Qianyu, on the other hand, only grew up in Blue Cloud City. She certainly did not enjoy even 1/10 of the cultivation resources that Mou had. If the same cultivation resources were used on Rui Qianyu, her strength would definitely not be below Mou's. Nie Tian, are you okay? Rui Qianyu's expression was indifferent. She floated to Nie Tian's side and just glanced at the latter. I'm fine. Nie Tian was stunned and immediately shook his head. At this time, the ice ball in midair was about to disappear. In just a few seconds, the 9th-level Chaos Beast had actually absorbed all the heavenly ice-cold fragrance fruit. At the same time, Nie Tian's body was also undergoing an amazing change. His entire body seemed to be unable to control his essence force. His body exuded a thick aura of heaven and earth spiritual power, and his whole body was shrouded in spiritual power. Fine beads of sweat oozed from his forehead, and his face was flushed and glossy, as if he was taking a shower in a high temperature. In his soul space, the 9 essence meridians were expanding at a speed that was almost visible to the naked eye. The Chaos Original Coffin was filled with heaven and earth spiritual power, so rich that it almost turned into a liquid. Nie Tian could feel his heart thumping wildly, because his strength was rising at a crazy rate. 4th tier of the Wanxiang realm, 5th tier of the Wanxiang realm, 6th tier of the Wanxiang realm, 7th tier of the Wanxiang realm. Nie Tian looked inside his body, and was shocked to find that his strength had increased by 4 tiers. 4 tiers. In the blink of an eye, this was like riding a rocket. My strength has stabilized? Very soon, Nie Tian found that his strength had stabilized at the 7th tier of the Wanxiang realm. He couldn't help but feel disappointed. He estimated that the medicinal power of the heavenly ice-cold fragrance fruit should be able to instantly increase his strength to the 9th tier of the Wanxiang realm, or even the giant soul realm. The heavenly ice-cold fragrance fruit was a solid 8th tier medicinal ingredient. It was 1 tier away from being a 9th tier Emperor tier medicinal ingredient. If a martial artist could completely absorb the heaven and earth spiritual power contained in an 8th tier medicinal ingredient, it would be enough to increase the strength of a spirit wheel realm or even a heaven evolution realm martial artist by 1 or 2 tiers. Nie Tian was only a Wanxiang realm martial artist now. There was a world of difference between him and a spirit wheel realm or a heaven evolution realm martial artist. Any spirit wheel realm martial artist could kill thousands of Wanxiang realm martial artists in the blink of an eye, not to mention heaven evolution realm martial artists who were 1 tier higher. Even Rui Qianyu, who was only at the 1st tier of the true essence realm, could kill hundreds of Wanxiang realm martial artists with 1 palm strike. This showed the difference between a spirit wheel realm and a heaven evolution realm martial artist and a Wanxiang realm martial artist. The strength of the 1st tier of the spirit wheel realm was enough for a Wanxiang realm martial artist to increase by an entire tier. Therefore, Nie Tian's prediction that the heavenly ice-cold fragrance fruit could allow him to advance to the 9th tier of the Wanxiang realm was already the most conservative estimate. Unfortunately, his strength stopped at the 7th tier of the Wanxiang realm and did not increase anymore. This made Nie Tian a little disappointed. As long as his strength advanced to the 1st tier of the giant soul realm, he was confident that he could fight against geniuses like Ding Yifan and Gong Feiyu, even if he did not have any star souls. He might even be able to fight against Chu Shifeng. Although his strength increased by 4 tiers directly was already very abnormal, it was not a qualitative improvement. It seems like the 9th-level Chaos Beast loses some of the medicinal herbs when it absorbs them, and when it is transferred to my body, it consumes another round. I have at most absorbed 10% of the heavenly ice-cold fragrance fruit's medicinal effect. Nie Tian guessed in his heart and felt that it was a pity. If he was the one to refine the heavenly ice-cold fragrance fruit, his strength would at least advance to the 9th tier of the Wanxiang realm, and he might even have a chance to break through to the giant soul realm. Yeah. At this moment, Little Nine was released from his frozen state and actually cried out excitedly. He was completely unharmed. Come back, little fellow. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Little Nine immediately turned into a stream of light and disappeared. Little Nine had also absorbed a lot of the heavenly ice-cold fragrance fruit's power and needed to cultivate and digest it immediately. Once he entered the chaotic original coffin, he immediately laid down to cultivate. The reason why Nyetian was so eager to advance to the giant soul realm was because he wanted to see how terrifying the 9th-level Chaos Beast's giant soul true body was. The 9th-level Chaos Beast was born from the chaotic original coffin. As long as Nyetian advanced to the giant soul realm, the 9th-level Chaos Beast would definitely be able to condense the giant soul true body. An enhanced version of the 9th-level Chaos Beast's giant soul true body. Just thinking about it made him excited. Nyetian, that little red beast is your spirit pet? Rui Qinyu saw Little Nine fly directly into Nyetian's body and guessed that Nyetian definitely had a spirit pet pouch. The spirit pet pouch was a very precious independent spatial artifact. It was specially used to rear small pets and was abnormally expensive. Previously, Nyetian had wanted to get a spirit pet pouch for Little Guai. Unfortunately, that last Nyeyuro liked Little Guai too much. As a big brother, Nyetian could not possibly snatch a pet from his little sister. Thus, he could only silently give it to Nyeyuro. Chapter 259. Nyetian was stunned for a moment, then he nodded. He couldn't say that the 9th-level Chaos Beast was his primordial spirit. Who would believe that a primordial spirit had an independent consciousness? A primordial spirit that existed independently of a martial artist? Such a statement was too shocking. Even if Nyetian said so, Rui Qinyu wouldn't believe it. So, he might as well admit that Little Nine was just a spiritual pet. What a strong spiritual pet! Rui Qinyu frowned slightly and said very seriously. Just now, Rui Qinyu had already felt the violent power of the celestial ice fragrance fruit from the huge ice ball. If it wasn't for the 9th-level Chaos Beast's quick action and snatching the celestial ice fragrance fruit before she did, even if Rui Qinyu didn't die, she would at most be half dead. Rui Qinyu really couldn't understand. Even a true energy realm martial artist like her couldn't withstand the violent medicinal power of the celestial ice fragrance fruit. How could a small spiritual pet do it? Unless this spiritual pet was a legendary 9th-level spiritual beast. A 9th-level spiritual beast. Could it be so small? The more Rui Qinyu thought about it, the more confused she became. In the end, she could only give up. Teacher Rui Qinyu, the celestial ice fragrance fruit just now. Nyetian thought that Rui Qinyu was imagining things, so he wanted to explain, but he was interrupted by the latter. I know. Rui Qinyu's dark blue eyes met Nyetian's. Everything was understood without words. Rui Qinyu wasn't stupid. How could she not see that Nyetian was trying to save her just now? Rui Qinyu finally looked at Nyetian, and she immediately revealed a shocked expression. She was shocked to find that Nyetian's strength had actually advanced to the 7th level of the all-creation realm. Rui Qinyu sensed again. It was indeed the 7th level of the all-creation realm. But how could this be possible? Just a moment ago, Nyetian was still at the 3rd tier of the Wanxiang Adept realm. In the blink of an eye, he had reached the 7th tier of the Wanxiang Adept realm. This was too strange and completely inexplicable. Could it be? Rui Qinyu suddenly thought of an explanation, and in her heart, she was even more astonished. For the first time ever, an astonished expression appeared on her beautiful face that was as cold as ice. Just now, the medicinal power of the celestial ice fragrant fruit was absorbed by Nyetian? This was the only possibility that could explain Nyetian's sudden increase in strength. What exactly is that scarlet little beast? Rui Qinyu started to suspect the 9-level Chaos Beast again. Just now, her 9-colored eyes had seen very clearly that the 9-level Chaos Beast had absorbed the power of the heaven ice-cold fragrance fruit. However, she did not know why Nyetian's strength had increased so much. It was very strange. Nyetian saw the change in Rui Qinyu's expression and knew that she was suspicious of something. He coughed dryly and said, "Teacher Rui, I have something to discuss with you." "Big brother Nyetian, why is your face red?" At this moment, Duanmu Wainer ran over. Seeing that Nyetian's face was red and had a worried look on her face, she asked with concern. "Shy." Nyetian stared blankly. For a moment, he couldn't find an excuse, and so he replied casually. Duanmu Wainer stared blankly for a moment. Then, she took a look at Rui Qianyu and immediately let out a long "oh," as if she had discovered a new continent. Nyetian's face was filled with black lines. This little lass is not well informed in other aspects, but she is very quick-witted when it comes to men and women. She can even make wild guesses about things that don't exist. Nyetian's face was red. It was because of the sudden increase in strength, and it had nothing to do with Rui Qianyu. Duanmu Wainer was a very sensitive person. She actually didn't notice that Nyetian's strength had skyrocketed. However, Duanmu Lu and Chu Shifeng, who were beside him, were much more attentive. They immediately noticed the change in Nyetian's strength and were shocked. Duanmu Lu seemed to want to say something, but after hesitating for a long time, he didn't say anything in the end. Chu Shifeng, on the other hand, frowned and loosened his brows. This repeated several times, but in the end, he still didn't say anything. Of course, Nyetian ignored them and pretended that nothing had happened. If the news that his strength had skyrocketed by 4 levels in the blink of an eye was spread out, it would definitely shock everyone. "Nyetian, what do you want to say to me?" Rui Qianyu was much calmer now. She recovered her usual coldness and asked lightly. Taking a deep breath, Nyetian calmed down. He didn't hide anything from Duanmu Lu and the others. He said, "Teacher Ruoyu, I already know that this is an illusion. You know it too?" Unexpectedly, Rui Qianyu was very calm. She only nodded slightly. Actually, when Nyetian made his move, Rui Qianyu noticed that the former was different from the others. Nyetian's body didn't have any blood qi invading it. This undoubtedly meant that he had noticed something. Illusion. Chu Shifeng, Duanmu Lu, and Duanmu Wainer were all stunned and exclaimed in surprise. Chu Shifeng was the smartest. His cunning eyes stared at Nyetian, as if he was wondering if Nyetian was bluffing. Here. Nyetian didn't explain to Chu Shifeng. He directly threw him a true crystal and said, "Inject your consciousness into the true crystal. You'll naturally be able to see everything around you." Chu Shifeng was naturally suspicious. He held the true crystal and didn't dare to touch it. He still suspected that this was a trap set by Nyetian. Nyetian laughed and said, "Chu Shifeng, you think too highly of yourself. Even if I wanted to deal with you, I wouldn't use any underhanded method. You're underestimating me too much." After being teased by Nyetian, Chu Shifeng finally mustered up the courage to inject a strand of consciousness into the true crystal. When everything inside the true crystal became clear, the shock in his heart was expressed on his face. Even his muscles couldn't help but tense up. "Benefactor, what did you mean when you said we're in an illusion?" Duanmu Lu saw Chu Shifeng's expression become frightened. He couldn't help but look at Nyetian. Nyetian didn't say anything. He also threw the true crystal to him. Duanmu Lu injected his consciousness into the true crystal. The shock on his face was no less than Chu Shifeng's. He already knew that the true crystal could reflect everything within 100 miles. However, he didn't know that it also had the ability to see through illusions. Previously, Duanmu Lu never thought that he would be in an illusion. Therefore, he didn't use the true crystal to check the surrounding illusions. Because he heard Nyetian say that he was looking for the ghost face gate, he gave the true crystal to Nyetian. "Big brother, what's going on? Let me take a look." Duanmu Wainer saw that Chu Shifeng and Duanmu Lu were both stunned. She couldn't help but be curious. She snatched the true crystal from Duanmu Lu's hand. In the next moment, when her consciousness entered the true crystal, her delicate little face suddenly stiffened. She was scared to the point of being sluggish. Nie Tian reached out and took back the 2 true crystals. His expression became more serious. He said, "We're now in a rank 5 illusion. You don't need to know what a rank 5 illusion is. You just need to know that I have a way to break through the illusion in front of you. That's enough." At this time, Nie Tian showed his determination. He exuded a strong confidence that made others have no choice but to believe him. "Why should I believe you?" Chu Shifeng looked at Nie Tian. He was stunned at the latter's strong mind. Then, he questioned. Chapter 260. At this time, Nie Tian did not want to hide anything anymore, and simply explained the current tense situation. The blood qi in the bloody slaughter ancient tomb was very heavy. Even if the martial artist did not cultivate, it was hard to prevent the blood qi from invading, unless you did not breathe. As long as the blood qi entered the body, the martial artist's yuan meridians and primordial spirit would suffer a certain degree of corrosion. Nie Tian took a look at Chu Shifeng. This guy was definitely absorbing the heaven and earth spiritual energy non-stop. The blood qi in his body was already quite a lot. Fortunately, his strength was strong enough, and he could still withstand it. But even if Chu Shifeng's strength was strong, if he continued to stay in the bloody slaughter ancient tomb, he would at most last another month. As for the other martial artists, the blood qi had probably already penetrated deep into their bodies, and their yuan meridians and primordial spirit were already feeling uncomfortable. Duanmu Lu finally understood at this time why Nie Tian did not let the siblings cultivate just now. Cultivating in the bloody slaughter ancient tomb was equivalent to suicide. Nie Tian City Lord, do you really have a way to break the illusion realm? Chu Shifeng completely believed that he was in the illusion realm, because when he circulated his essence energy earlier, his yuan meridians were already starting to ache faintly. The blood qi had already started to take effect. Nie Tian did not want to die, and Chu Shifeng did not want to die even more. Rui Qianyu also looked at Nie Tian, waiting for him to continue. She still had a great enmity to avenge. How could she die here? Nie Tian nodded his head, swept a glance at the few people in front of him, and said, "To break the illusion realm, we just need to destroy the eye of the illusion realm. I already know that the ghost face door that we entered the ancient tomb previously is where the eye of the illusion realm is. So as long as we destroy the ghost face door, the illusion realm will naturally be broken. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go now." Chu Shifeng was the most anxious, wishing that he could immediately destroy the ghost face door. But Nie Tian smiled faintly, and said with a wave of his hand, "Just the few of us wanting to destroy the ghost face door is a little forceful. Isn't it just a broken door? Is it that hard to destroy?" Chu Shifeng was so anxious that he almost shouted. Among the 5 of them, he had the most blood qi in his body. If he continued to stay here, even if Nie Tian did not intervene, it would be difficult for him to survive. "How many more do you need?" Rui Qianyu spoke calmly. Even in this moment of life and death, she remained cold, like a block of ice that would never melt in 1,000 years. Nie Tian thought for a moment and said, "With our strength, it will take at least half a month to break the eye of a rank 5 illusion. Therefore, there is no limit to the number of people I need. The more, the better. The rank 5 illusion eye could withstand the attack of a spirit wheel stage expert. Fortunately, the attack endured by the illusion eye could be stacked. When the damage reached the limit of the illusion eye, it would naturally break. Among the 5 of them, Rui Qianyu was a true element stage warrior, Chu Shifeng was a giant spirit stage 7, Duanmu Lu and Duanmu Weiner were both giant spirit stage 1, and Nie Tian was a Wanxiang spirit stage 7. If they were to stack their attacks together, it would take them half a month to break the eye of illusion. Therefore, the more warriors there were, the better. If tens of thousands of warriors who entered the ancient bloody tomb attacked at the same time, the illusion eye could be broken in a moment. "Then let's go find people," Chu Shifeng said in a deep voice and turned to leave. Nie Tian shook his head and smiled. This guy was actually so afraid of death. he said. The environment in the illusion is always changing. Without the true crystal, you won't be able to find the ghost face door even if you die. Chu Shifeng was stunned and looked around subconsciously. After a while, he was shocked to find that the illusion was indeed changing slowly. If it wasn't for Nie Tian's reminder, he wouldn't have noticed the changes in the environment. Give me the true crystal. Chu Shifeng stretched out his hand unreasonably and shouted at Nie Tian. Okay. Nie Tian didn't refuse and threw the true crystal to Chu Shifeng. Chu Shifeng took the true G crystal and left in a flash without saying a word. Big senior brother, I will go with you. Duanmu Weiner reacted and shouted, wanting to chase after him. Come back. Nie Tian moved and stopped Duanmu Weiner. In the blink of an eye, Chu Shifeng's figure disappeared. Big brother Nie Tian, why don't you let me go with big senior brother? Duanmu Weiner frowned and seemed a little unhappy. He is going to take care of business. You will be a burden to him. Nie Tian explained casually and smiled bitterly in his heart. Silly girl, if you go with him, I'm afraid you won't be able to come back. The reason why Chu Shifeng didn't make a move on Duanmu and his sister was because of Nie Tian's existence. If he was given a chance to be alone with Duanmu Weiner, he would definitely make a move without hesitation. Nie Tian, let's go find people. Rui Qianyu saw that Chu Shifeng had left and turned to leave. Wait. Nie Tian stopped her and said with a mysterious smile, there's no hurry. There will be others who will help us find people. Others? Rui Qianyu was stunned. She spread out her divine sense subconsciously but didn't find anyone. Nie Tian looked at the forest thousands of meters away and said in a clear voice, You have followed me for so long. You heard our conversation just now. Don't you want to come out and help? Duanmu Lu and the others followed Nie Tian's gaze but didn't see anyone. After a long while, there was still no movement. Nie Tian shouted again, There is evil blood qi in your body. If you continue to wait, it will do no good to anyone. As soon as he finished speaking, the surroundings were empty and looked a little gloomy. Amazing! After a while, a faint voice sounded and a figure appeared like a ghost. In the blink of an eye, he was less than 10 meters away from Nie Tian. A pair of malicious eyes looked at Nie Tian and said with a playful smile, You are indeed the city lord of Tianluo City. Your perception is really amazing. I hid my aura so well, but you still found me. Could it be that those rumors are true? The newcomer had a thin face and was not tall, slightly shorter than an ordinary man. However, his eyes were very lively and emitted a strange expression from time to time. They were like a pair of wolf eyes that were constantly searching for prey. He was none other than Dongfang Du, who had been secretly watching Nie Tian. Dongfang Du, the young master of the God Transformation sect and the second genius on the genius list of the South Mountain Territory. Rumors? What rumors? Nie Tian asked as he looked at Dongfang Du. He was surprised by the latter's strength. Nie Tian didn't expect that Dongfang Du's strength was actually at the 8th level of the giant spirit realm. He looked to be in his early 20s. With such strength, he must be someone on the genius list. In fact, Nie Tian had just discovered Dongfang Du's existence. Dongfang Du hid his aura almost perfectly. If it wasn't because he was shocked by Rui Qianyu's strength and had his origin force slightly fluctuated, even Nie Tian wouldn't have discovered his existence. Chapter 261. After Dongfang Du finished speaking, his shrewd wolf-like eyes stared at Nie Tian, obviously trying to judge whether what he said was correct or not through the latter's reaction. Humph. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, Rumors are just rumors after all. If you want to believe it, I can't do anything about it. Nie Tian did not expect that the Dragon Blood Martial Assembly would not only make his name known to everyone, but also spread so many unreliable rumors. If his name were to spread to Shumi Spirit Capital, it would not be a good thing. Dongfang Du smiled sinisterly, his complex expression making people unable to guess what he was thinking. He said, I am just a nameless person, it doesn't matter if I believe it or not. I just don't know if the name of Nye Tian City Lord is spread to Gu Qiulong's ears. How will he, the #1 spiritual force genius of Shumi Spirit Capital, be able to call himself? Gu Qiulong was a genius on par with Mou in the 3,000 small worlds, but his talent was mainly his terrifying spiritual force. He was known as the #1 spiritual force genius of Shumi Spirit Capital. Nye Tian had heard of this person from Shui Linglong and Gu Yi, but he had not yet met him. Nye Tian smiled faintly and said, "How he wants to call himself is his business, it has nothing to do with me. If you want to talk to me about these insignificant topics, then your appearance is meaningless." Good. Dongfang Du nodded his head. Of course, he knew the purpose of Nye Tian calling him out, and did not refuse. He stretched out his hand and said, "Give me the true polar crystal, I will help you find people. And I will definitely bring them there." Just now, Nye Tian's words were heard by Dongfang Du, and he also knew that he was in an illusion. If it were not for the evil blood qi in his body at this time, he would not do things for Nye Tian. Moreover, he knew that even if he did not help Nye Tian find people, the latter would personally look for people. However, Dongfang Du felt that his life was too precious and it was not worth the risk. What if Nye Tian could not find enough people? Nye Tian didn't put on an act. He directly threw the true Ji crystal over and said, "I hope you won't disappoint me." Dongfang Du took the true Ji crystal, and his malicious gaze moved from Nye Tian to Rui Qianyu, and began to look at her unscrupulously. But Rui Qianyu was like a cold rock, completely ignoring him, treating him as if he didn't exist. "I'll remember you. I look forward to fighting you," Dongfang Du said coldly. Soon after, his figure flashed and he left. Rui Qianyu frowned slightly. If it weren't for the fact that Nye Tian wanted to use Dongfang Du for something, she would have killed him right now. "Nye Tian City Lord, my name is Dongfang Du, we will meet again." After a moment, Dongfang Du's voice suddenly sounded from the air, and then his breath disappeared. Dongfang Du. Duanmu Lu and Duanmu Weiner were shocked at the same time, and their faces turned pale. "You know him?" Nye Tian asked. Duanmu Lu came back to his senses, nodded, and introduced Dongfang Du. "He is the young lord of the Transformation God sect, and the second genius on the genius list of the Nanshan territory. No wonder he is so arrogant." Nye Tian murmured, "This person likes someone, but his love turned into hatred. He directly destroyed the royal family of a third-rate empire. Such a vicious heart is really rare." Dongfang Du once liked the princess of a third-rate empire, but the princess didn't like him. In a fit of anger, he destroyed the royal family of the third-rate empire and killed the princess with his own hands. This incident was known by everyone in the Nanshan territory, so Duanmu Lu naturally didn't forget to tell them. "Nye Tian, can this person be trusted?" Rui Qianyu showed a rare worry and asked. Nye Tian smiled confidently and said, "No matter how ruthless Dongfang Du is, he won't joke around with his life. As long as he doesn't want to die, he will obediently work for me." Dongfang Du's evil blood qi was even more powerful than Chu Shifeng's, so he wouldn't risk his life. "Ah!" At this time, Duanmu Weiner suddenly let out a strange cry and said, "Big brother Nye Tian, you just said that we can't find the ghost face gate without the true crystal. You just gave the true crystal to Big Brother and Dongfang Du, so how are we going to get to the ghost face gate?" "That's for them." Nye Tian smiled faintly. If he would make such a low-level mistake, then he wouldn't be the #1 war god. "Come with me." With a confident smile, Nye Tian strode to the front. He had observed the true crystal several times just now and had already memorized the location of the ghost face gate. It was less than 10 kilometers away from their current position. Even if the environment in the illusion realm was constantly changing, Nye Tian could still easily find the ghost face gate. Moreover, he had Rui Qianyu and Little Jiu by his side. These two guys weren't affected by the illusion realm. Soon, under Nye Tian's lead, they arrived at a canyon. At the end of the canyon was a pitch-black cave. It was like a monster that opened its huge mouth and wanted to swallow everything. This is the place. Nye Tian stared at the cave for a long time and finally confirmed that this was the place where the Ghost Face Gate was located. The cave in front of them was the Ghost Face Gate that the martial artists used to enter the Bloody Massacre ancient tomb. Rui Qianyu looked at the cave in front of her with her deep blue eyes. She realized that there was a layer of barrier that normal people couldn't detect. It should be the illusion formation that Nye Tian talked about. Let me take a look first, Nye Tian said and walked towards the entrance of the cave. Rumble! Rumble! Just as he stepped into the canyon, countless violent sounds came from both sides of the canyon. Then, an unbelievable scene appeared in front of him. Dozens of huge black rocks on both sides of the canyon suddenly moved and instantly stretched out. Hands and legs appeared and turned into 3-meter-tall stone people. This is... Seeing this scene, Nye Tian sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly retreated. Luckily, the black stone people forced Nye Tian out of the canyon and stopped and retreated. Big brother Nye Tian, the black rocks are alive. Duanmu Weiner had a surprised look on her face as she pointed at the rocks in the canyon. It's the Blackstone Guards. Nye Tian's expression immediately became heavy. He knew that it wouldn't be that easy this time. The Blackstone Guards were created from the underground Blackstone of the 9 underworld demon realm. Using a puppet technique, they were given life characteristics. This kind of puppet technique was very unique. Even in the demon realm, only a few people were able to use it, and Demon King Corpse Luo was one of them. In his previous life, Nye Tian had fought against the Blackstone Guards. These things were very hard to deal with. The most troublesome thing was that their defense was extremely strong, making them very hard to kill. The best way to deal with the Blackstone Guards was to seal them. Unfortunately, Nye Tian didn't have any sealing scrolls on him. Nye Tian, do you know what these things are? Rui Qianyu seemed to have sensed something from the Blackstone Guards and asked while frowning. Nye Tian nodded and explained, these are Blackstone Guards, but they aren't ordinary stone people. They are created from the underground Blackstone of the 9 underworld demon realm. They are incomparably hard and their defense far surpasses that of ordinary giant soul realm martial artists. Their attack power is also very strong, comparable to giant soul realm martial artists. These black rocks are that powerful? Duanmu Weiner subconsciously looked at the black rocks that had already turned back into rock. An expression of disbelief appeared on her face. Chapter 262. It was hard to imagine that a piece of broken stone was actually more terrifying than a giant spirit realm martial artist. Duanmu Weiner was at the first layer of the giant spirit realm, so any random mystical stone Imperial Guard was enough to make her piss in her pants. Nye Tian paid no attention to Duanmu Weiner. His eyes were fixed on the top of the canyon. When he saw a black boulder that was at least 10 meters wide, he immediately felt his lips go dry. He couldn't help but lick the corner of his mouth. A few dozen mystical stone Imperial Guards were obviously not enough to make Nye Tian afraid. What he was really worried about was the black boulder above the canyon. If he guessed correctly, this boulder should be the mystical stone king. From its size, once it turned into a mystical stone Imperial Guard, its battle strength would definitely be comparable to a true element realm martial artist. True element realm martial artist. Even among all the martial artists that entered the tomb, the only one that Nye Tian had seen was Rui Qianyu. There was a bone age restriction in the ancient bloody tomb that only martial artists under the age of 30 were allowed to enter. To be able to reach the giant spirit realm before the age of 30 was already considered a good talent. Those that reached the true element realm were definitely monstrous geniuses. Nye Tian, could that one also be a mystical stone Imperial Guard? Rui Qianyu followed Nye Tian's gaze and looked over, her indifferent face finally showing a touch of surprise. Nye Tian nodded and said, Looks like it won't be that easy to break the Eye of Illusion. Just these mystical stone Imperial Guards are troublesome enough, and there's also a mystical Stone King. All of us probably won't even be able to touch the Eye of Illusion before being chased out of the canyon by the mystical stone Imperial Guards. Since the corpse Monarch had laid down a fifth-order illusion, he would naturally protect the Eye of Illusion. With the strength of the mystical stone Imperial Guards in the canyon, it was enough to deal with the current situation. What should we do? For the first time, Rui Qianyu asked Nie Tian in a panicked tone. Nie Tian frowned slightly. Right now, he did not have a good idea. He could only wait for the two coolies, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng, to come back. If they brought back a lot of warriors, then he would attack and use the advantage of numbers to delay the Blackstone Forbidden Guard. Then, he would forcefully break the Phantom Eye. For now, this was the most reliable method. The next step was to wait anxiously. Nie Tian, on the other hand, took a good look at his body to determine his current combat strength. Soul space inside the galaxy domain. The domain origin formation slowly and steadily operated, like an enormous and boundless beast. Every breath it took could affect the connection between heaven and earth. The primordial star stone was like a pillar that connected to the heavens, standing in the center of the domain origin formation. It was like a giant dragon soaring into the sky, leading to the distant and boundless ninth layer of the galaxy. At this moment, the primordial star stone was sparkling with starlight, no longer as dim and lusterless as before. After absorbing the power of the heavenly ice fragrance fruit, Nie Tian's strength had skyrocketed from the third tier of the Wanxiang domain to the seventh tier of the Wanxiang domain. The power of the stars on the primordial star stone had already awakened 80,000 stars. 80,000 stars. Nie Tian's absolute strength had already reached the astonishing level of 10 million. This kind of strength could only be achieved by a giant spirit warrior who had activated his giant spirit true body. More importantly, he could already see some clues from the star totem on the primordial star stone. The power of 80,000 stars linked together, on the enormous primordial star stone, still appeared sparse. But all the power of the stars linked together, outlining an enormous picture scroll. Nie Tian could not clearly see the true face of the enormous picture scroll. He could only faintly feel that it was like a boundless net. There was a slightly clear mark on the net, like the back of a giant beast. Apart from this, he could not see any other information. The primordial star stone has the power of 900 billion stars. I have only awakened the power of 80,000 stars, not even 1 in 10 million. It's probably still too early for me to activate the star totem, Nie Tian murmured in his heart, but he was already somewhat unable to suppress his excitement. If he could activate the star totem, then it would definitely be an unimaginably terrifying power. Nie Tian estimated that as long as he could completely unlock the power of the 10th Yuan Meridian, he would definitely be able to reach the peak again. He might even be able to surpass the 9 emperors of the Heaven Realm and become an unprecedented existence. The strength of the 7th tier of the Wanxiang domain is already not bad. This time, it's all thanks to Little Nine's help. In the future, I must definitely let this little fellow eat more spirit pills and medicinal ingredients. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth curled up slightly as he focused his attention on the ninefold chaos beast within the primordial chaos original coffin. At this moment, Little Nine had already entered a state of deep cultivation. The fist-sized mirage snow fox was lying on its body, asleep as well. Swallowing the celestial ice fragrance fruit was not a small burden for Little Nine. It would probably take a period of cultivation before it could be completely digested. Although Nie Tian could use the ninefold chaos beast to swallow some medicinal ingredients with violent medicinal effects, these medicinal ingredients were all rare items. For example, the celestial ice fragrance fruit was an 8th-tier medicinal ingredient. There were probably only a few stalks of it in the entire 3,000 small worlds. Such an item could only be found by chance. If another 8th-tier medicinal ingredient really appeared, Nye Tian would take it and store it well. Then, he would use the cauldron to refine it so that its medicinal effects would be even stronger. This little fellow, it can't always be this big, right? If it really doesn't grow, no matter how fast it is or how strong its body is, the destructive power it can create will ultimately be limited. I hope that when my strength reaches the giant soul realm, the ninefold chaos beast will undergo shocking changes, Nye Tian said to himself as he looked at the sleeping little Nine. Although little Nine had been born for a period of time, its size had not grown. This made Nye Tian a little unhappy. If he wanted to let the ninefold chaos beast unleash its true strength, he would have to wait until his strength reached the giant soul realm and condensed the giant soul true body. Following that, Nye Tian opened the original book of astral souls and wanted to inscribe another astral soul. Now, he already had 80,000 stars in his body, and his spiritual power was also at the 44th tier. Inscribing a second-tier astral soul was very easy. Nye Tian could only open up the 4th page of astral souls. He needed to reach the giant soul realm before he could open up the 5th page. The 4th page of astral souls were all second-tier astral souls. It was more than enough to deal with his current enemies. This is it. After seriously sensing all the astral souls, Nye Tian finally chose an astral soul called Weak Water Imprisonment. The Weak Water Imprisonment astral soul looked like a restriction spiritual array, and the aura of the spiritual array was very strong. It was not weaker than a 4th-tier spiritual array. A 4th-tier spiritual array was enough to trap any giant soul realm martial artist. Without hesitation, Nye Tian immediately began to inscribe the astral soul. In any case, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng would not be able to return anytime soon. Although the ancient blood slaughter tomb was an independent space, it was very vast. Even if the two of them had the true crystal, it would not be easy to find many martial artists. This time, it was all thanks to the two laborers, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng. Otherwise, Nye Tian would have to personally find people. With his prestige, he naturally could not compare to the two geniuses ranked 2nd and 3rd in the genius ranking. He would definitely have to waste a lot of effort. Just thinking about it was troublesome. 3 days later, Nye Tian finally inscribed the Weak Water Imprisonment. At the same time, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng also appeared. Dongfang Du brought back close to 100 martial artists, and all of them were giant soul realm martial artists. Looking at their dejected faces, they must have suffered a lot. With Dongfang Du's personality, he would definitely not try to persuade you to come over with kind words. Chu Shifeng also brought back over 70 martial artists. All of them were giant soul realm martial artists. The two of them were very smart. They knew that those manifestation realm martial artists were too weak. Adding on the fact that they had been heavily corroded by the fiendish blood aura, even if they brought them over, they would not have much combat power. Next, it was time to fight the mystic stone guards and break the illusion eye. Chapter 263. I'll return the true crystal to you. Dongfang Du threw the true crystal to Nye Tian with a provocative smile on his face. Nye Tian caught the true crystal and ignored Dongfang Du's provocation. Chu Shifeng wanted to take the true crystal for himself, but seeing that even Dongfang Du had returned it to Nye Tian, he hesitated for a moment before throwing the true crystal back to Nye Tian. At this time, the warriors brought by Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng were already anxious to death and began to get agitated. Young Master Dongfang, why did you bring us to this broken canyon? There are so many treasures waiting for us to grab. We don't have that much time to waste. Yes. Young Master Chu, there are treasures everywhere in the ancient bloody tomb. If we can grab any one of them, we can live the rest of our lives in glory. I don't want to waste time here. Everyone says that the ancient bloody tomb is a forbidden place among forbidden places. Now that I'm here, I'm not only fine, but I've also grabbed so many treasures. There's a saying that's true: the timid will starve to death, and the courageous will fill to death. Entering the ancient bloody tomb was the wisest decision I've made in my life. The group of people made a ruckus, not knowing what was going on. Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng didn't tell them the truth, but instead forced them to come here. Nie Tian glanced at these people and murmured, "You will die the same way pigs die." "Big brother Nie Tian, how do pigs die?" Duanmu Weiner, who was standing beside Nie Tian, interrupted. "They die of stupidity." Nie Tian's face darkened. This girl really didn't know anything. "Everyone, quiet." Dongfang Du's face darkened. He roared angrily and looked around with a murderous gaze. Since the ancient bloody tomb was the closest to the South Mountain region, most of the martial artists who entered the tomb were from the South Mountain region. Naturally, they knew of the notoriety of Dongfang Du. After being yelled at by the latter, they immediately fell silent. "Nie Tian City Lord, it's up to you now." Dongfang Du looked at Nie Tian with a sinister smile. Nie Tian nodded slightly and said, "Everyone, there are real treasures in the caves of this canyon in front of us. According to my guess, the herbs are all rank 9 herbs, the spirit weapons are all rank 9 emperor weapons, and the martial techniques are all heaven-ranked martial technique. However, the cave is guarded by a barrier. We need to work together to break through the barrier." As Nie Tian spoke, he observed everyone's reaction. The fiendish blood energy in these people was already very heavy. If they were not given some motivation, they would not be able to use their full strength. Hearing Nie Tian's words, Duanmu Weiner whispered to Duanmu Lu, Big brother Nie Tian is so amazing. He doesn't even blush when lying. What a genius." Even though her voice was very soft, Nie Tian still heard it. The latter's face darkened. This girl's way of praising people was really unique. F***ck. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. As soon as Nie Tian's voice fell, someone below couldn't wait any longer. With a loud shout, he leaped and directly rushed into the canyon. Bang! In the next moment there was a muffled sound. That guy was directly sent flying. After landing on the ground, he died on the spot. Nie Tian looked down and saw that this person was also at the first layer of the giant spirit realm. Even though he had been corroded by the fiendish blood energy and his strength had decreased, he was still considered an expert. Yet, a mystic stone imperial guard punched through his body with one punch. It was really frightening. The others didn't look at this person's corpse. Instead, they all looked towards the canyon. When they saw dozens of mystic stone imperial guards waiting in formation, they were immediately stunned. After a while, when the mystic stone imperial guards turned back to stone, only then did they let out a scream. "Oh my God, what is this thing? Did the stone turn into a spirit? I'm not going. Even if there's a super heaven-ranked martial art in the cave, I'm not going. That weird stone can kill a person with one punch. Who can be his opponent? Yeah, let's hurry back. Although the things in the cave are good, it's not something we can enjoy. There are many treasures outside. If we can get any one of them, it would be enough to benefit us for a lifetime." Everyone was in a panic and actually started to retreat. Someone was the first to run, wanting to leave. Pooh! That person had just run 2 steps when suddenly, there was a sound of air being pierced. Immediately after, he fell to the ground dead. Very few people saw how this person died. In fact, most of them didn't even know who the killer was. Who dares to leave? He's an example. Dongfang Du smiled coldly. His small eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Without a doubt, it was Dongfang Du who killed the person who ran away. Could it be a hidden weapon? Nie Tian looked at Dongfang Du and couldn't help but be stunned. Even he couldn't clearly see how Dongfang Du made his move. It seemed to be some kind of hidden weapon. Moreover, it was extremely poisonous. The corpse that fell to the ground quickly turned black. Moreover, there was a pungent smell in the air. None of this could escape Nie Tian's perception. It seems like Dongfang Du is most proficient in sneak attack. Nie Tian made a guess in his heart. At the same time, he paid more attention to Dongfang Du just now. Dongfang Du's sneak attack was hard to dodge even for Nie Tian. Everyone looked at Dongfang Du in fear. Although they were very unwilling, they still didn't dare to take half a step forward. Nie Tian City Lord, please continue. Dongfang Du's mouth curved into a smile. He acted as if nothing had happened and shouted at Nie Tian. Right now, only Nie Tian knew how to break the illusion. If not, Dongfang Du would have already attacked Nie Tian. He had already seen a huge threat from Nie Tian. He would not allow a person who was a threat to him to live. As long as the illusion was broken, Dongfang Du would immediately kill Nie Tian. At this time, Dongfang Du looked at Rui Qianyu. He felt that the latter would be trouble. 1,000 Leaves of Rain had killed hundreds of martial artists with a single palm strike. Dongfang Du had seen it with his own eyes. He asked himself if he could do it as well. However, he would have to take out his final trump card. Nie Tian could guess what Dongfang Du was thinking just by looking at the latter's eyes. But he didn't care. The most important thing now was to break the illusion. So he continued, in addition to the protection of the cave's barrier, there are also the Mystic Stone Imperial Guards guarding it. But don't be afraid. We will deal with these Mystic Stone Imperial Guards. You just need to focus on attacking the cave barrier. Nie Tian already had a countermeasure in his heart. He decided that he, Rui Qianyu, Dongfang Du, Chu Shifeng, and the others would choose a few strong people to enter the canyon first. They would find a way to trap the Mystic Stone Imperial Guards, and then let the other martial artists enter and destroy the barrier of the Ghost Face Gate. As long as the barrier was destroyed, it was equivalent to destroying the Eye of Illusion. Then, the illusion would be broken. Everyone looked at Nie Tian with a face full of gratitude. The strength that the Mystic Stone Imperial Guards displayed just now was too strong. If they were to deal with them, they would definitely be sending themselves to death. You. Next, Nie Tian scanned the crowd and pointed out a few martial artists whose strength was above the 3rd level of the giant spirit. The martial artists who were pointed out stood out one after another with a face full of fear. Chapter 264. The purple-clothed woman looked to be in her early 20s. Her entire body was hidden under the purple robe, and a layer of faint purple circulated around her body like some kind of flame. The aura on her body. Nie Tian frowned. The purple-clothed woman in front of him reminded him of something. Devil fire? That's right. This was the aura of the demonic fire. Although the purple-clothed woman was deliberately suppressing the aura within her body, and her purple clothes also had the effect of concealing her aura, it still couldn't escape Nie Tian's sharp senses. If my guess is correct, you should be the strongest clone of the Doomsday Flame, the Purple Flame. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth curled up into a faint smile. He had already guessed the identity of the purple-clothed woman. That's right. Nie Tian's gaze locked onto the purple-clothed woman. She was none other than Mr. Purple, the strongest clone of the Doomsday Flame, Purple Flame Lai Xinz. She had been searching for him hundreds and thousands of times. When she raised her head, that person was right in front of her. Nie Tian did not expect that the demon flame that he had been searching for would also come to the bloody massacre ancient tomb. This was a pleasant surprise. Nie Tian could not sense Mr. Z's strength, but he had a hunch that the latter's combat power was definitely not below Rui Qianyu's. Mr. Z clearly sensed Nie Tian's gaze, but his face did not reveal any expression. Instead, he took a step forward and said calmly, "I am willing to deal with the Mystic Stone Guards." Everyone was taken aback, staring at Mr. Z in astonishment. Everyone knew that the Mystic Stone Imperial Guards were hard to deal with. This person still took the initiative to step forward. Wasn't this courting death? All right. Nie Tian smiled slightly and thought, Purple Flame Lai Xin is a demonic fire body, so she will definitely not be affected by the illusion, but she has already condensed her human form, and the blood evil chi has an corrosive effect on her, so she also wants to break through the illusion. If she finds out that I'm the one who devoured Scarlet Flame's forked tongue, it'll be bad. Mr. Purple did not know that Nie Tian was the one who had devoured Chi Hua's Lai Xinz, but before entering the bloody massacre ancient tomb, Mo Shi had told her to kill Nie Tian if she had the chance. Mr. Z would never question Mo Shi's orders and would only carry them out resolutely. After a while, Nie Tian chose about 20 people, all of whom were the strongest among the 100 or so martial artists. These 20 people were the vanguard. They were responsible for breaking through the defense of the profound stone Imperial Guards and opening up a path for the people behind them to enter the canyon. Charge! With a deep roar, Nie Tian was the first to step into the canyon. Just as his foot landed on the ground, the profound stone Imperial Guards in the canyon immediately made a move. The 2 profound stone Imperial Guards rushed towards Nie Tian at the same time, attacking him from the left and right. Every punch and kick of the mystic stone Imperial Guard seemed ordinary and unremarkable, but the power contained within absolutely surpassed the giant spirit true body of an ordinary martial artist. Nie Tian did not even look and directly smashed out with both fists, directly choosing to meet the mystic stone Imperial Guard head-on. The fists and kicks of the profound stone Imperial Guards were absolute strength and did not contain a trace of spirit energy. Nie Tian was the same. With the power of 80,000 stars in his body, the strength of Nie Tian's fists had already reached the level of 10 million jin. This was an extremely terrifying number. Even ordinary giant spirit realm martial artists could not reach it. Bang! Bang! 2 muffled sounds, as if metal and stone had collided, actually exploded into dazzling sparks. The profound stone Imperial Guard's madly sprinting body suddenly stopped, unable to advance even half a step. Nie Tian's feet fiercely stomped on the ground, his entire ankles sinking. Hiss! When the martial artists outside the canyon saw this, they all sucked in a cold breath. The strength of the profound stone Imperial Guards had already been displayed once, killing a first-level giant spirit realm martial artist with 1 punch. Nie Tian was only at the 7th level of the manifestation realm, but he could actually block the attacks of 2 profound stone Imperial Guards at the same time. It was really incredible. Bang! 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 At this time, the ground rumbled and shook. The other profound stone Imperial Guards all came to life and fiercely rushed towards Nie Tian. These large stones were each 2 to 3 meters tall. Although they looked very clumsy, their speed was extremely fast, not the slightest bit inferior to that of a giant spirit realm martial artist. The profound stone Imperial Guards rushed up, and the people behind Nie Tian also rushed into the canyon. Rui Qinyu slapped out with her palm, and a violent force swept through the heaven and earth, directly sending a profound stone Imperial Guard flying backwards. The others rushed in one after another, fighting with dozens of profound stone Imperial Guards. Ah! A 3rd-level giant spirit realm martial artist wanted to learn from Nie Tian and forcefully resist the profound stone Imperial Guard's attack, but just as his fist smashed out, he felt his entire arm was like a piece of paper, directly sent flying by a profound stone Imperial Guard's punch. Against the profound stone Imperial Guards, even if the giant spirit true body appeared, it would be hard to harm them in the slightest. The only way was to temporarily delay them. Get out of my way! The 10th elemental meridian in Nie Tian's body crazily revolved, and instantly essence energy surged. Even his arm seemed to explosively expand by a size. He sent a profound stone Imperial Guard flying with a punch, then he loudly roared, "Everyone, form a straight line and squeeze them to the edge of the canyon." When Rui Qinyu heard Nie Tian's shout, she immediately understood his meaning. Nie Tian wanted to trap all the profound stone Imperial Guards in a corner of the canyon. As long as they were trapped, it would allow the other martial artists to approach the barrier of the cave entrance. Smart. Chu Shifeng also understood. The sky splitter halberd in his hand violently stabbed out, forcing a profound stone imperial guard to continuously retreat. The sky splitter halberd, this was Chu Shifeng's primordial spirit. It was extremely domineering, and every stab of the halberd was filled with golden flames. At the side, Dongfang Du's gloomy and cold eyes roamed. Just now, he had smashed a profound stone imperial guard into pieces with a punch, but the latter seemed to be unkillable. After landing on the ground, the gravel would once again condense together. When the other martial artists heard Nie Tian's order, they all understood. They no longer fought the profound stone imperial guards head-on, but they slowly forced them to a corner of the canyon. Nie Tian led the group to block the dozens of profound stone imperial guards and anxiously shouted, "People outside the canyon, rush in!" Okay. The scene just now made the blood of the people outside the canyon boil. At this time, Nie Tian and the others had successfully trapped the profound stone imperial guard. Someone shouted and took the lead to rush in. Boom. However, just as that person stepped into the canyon, he heard a loud noise above his head. Immediately, a 10-meter square boulder smashed down. Boom. The boulder landed on the ground and the entire canyon shook. The martial artist who rushed in first was directly smashed into meat paste. Seeing this scene, everyone else was stunned and didn't dare to take even half a step forward. In the next moment, an incredible scene appeared. After the boulder landed, it directly split into several pieces. Then, hands and feet appeared, and it became a 10-meter giant stone man. Damn it! It's the Profound Stone King. When Nie Tian saw the Profound Stone King make a move, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The Profound Stone Imperial Guards were already troublesome enough. Adding the Profound Stone King, whose strength was comparable to a true element realm martial artist, would be even worse. Roar. The Profound Stone King was like an angry gorilla, beating its chest hard and roaring deeply, as if to declare that this canyon was its courting death. At this time, a calm voice sounded. A figure leaped into the air and slammed a palm at the Profound Stone King. Boom. On the other side, a sharp sword condensed from purple flames appeared, like a bolt of lightning, stabbing at the Profound Stone King. Chapter 265. When Nie Tian turned around and saw that it was Rui Qianyu and the purple-robed woman, he felt much more at ease. Among all the martial artists present, these two were the strongest. Even if Nie Tian used his star souls and the 3 seals of the god of war, he still wasn't sure that he could defeat Rui Qianyu or the purple-robed woman. In midair, Rui Qianyu struck out with her palm, and a green leaf shot out from her palm. It looked weak and harmless, but the sharp aura it exuded was frightening. Surrounding the green leaf was a layer of indiscernible true qi. This layer of true energy was true energy qi. True energy qi was formed by highly condensed and compressed origin energy in a warrior's body. It could support a warrior's flight for a short period of time. However, in order to achieve long-distance flight, a warrior had to reach the divine wheel realm. Once a warrior in the divine wheel realm formed a divine wheel, he could directly form a pair of wings, which was very abnormal. Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng watched from the side. They could clearly see the true energy on the green leaf, and they were both terrified. They didn't expect that the young woman in front of them was already a warrior in the true energy realm. These two geniuses, who were known as the second and third geniuses of the Nanshan Domain's genius list, were not arrogant at all in front of Rui Qianyu. Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng now knew that their strength was not enough to compete with Rui Qianyu. Only the number 1 genius of the Nanshan Domain's genius list might be able to fight against Rui Qianyu. Rui Qianyu looked like she was only 20 years old, which made Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng very upset. Puff! The green leaf was like a hidden weapon, directly entering the Mystic Rock King's neck. One leaf of Bodhi explode. Rui Qianyu quickly formed a seal with her hand and shouted in a low voice. Bang! With a loud explosion, the Mystic Rock King's neck exploded, and countless gravel flew into the air. It was powerful enough to hit the cliff and create a big hole. Ha! Ha! The mystic Rock King let out a strange roar. He covered his neck with his fan-like palm and staggered back a few steps. On the other side, almost at the same time, Mr. Z's purple flame sword arrived. The blazing flame swept past and directly cut off the mystic Rock King's stone head. The stone head was like a big stone ball as it rolled on the ground. Its empty eyes suddenly shrank as if it was puzzled. Boom! When he saw this scene, Nye Tian subconsciously gulped down a mouthful of saliva as well. He never imagined that Rainy Qianye and the violet-clothed woman's battle prowess would be so formidable. It was the first time they joined forces and they actually directly beheaded the Darkstone King. The crowd of martial artists outside was even more shocked. Just a moment ago, a small profound stone Imperial Guard was already so powerful. Now that a big guy had appeared, it was even more incredible. But this big guy was actually defeated by two little girls with a single palm and a sword. It was really too exciting. Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng were a little depressed. They didn't expect that besides Rui Qianyu, there was also Mr. Z. Judging from the latter's attack, his strength was not below Rui Qianyu. The most important thing was that this person was so young. Those who could enter the bloody massacre ancient tomb were all under 30 years old. Encountering two people who were far more monstrous than themselves at the same time, the psychological shadow of these two geniuses could be imagined. At this time, Nye Tian suddenly saw that the headless mystic Rock King's body lit up with a layer of blue light. It seemed to be emitted from its heart. Is the weakness of the mystic Rock King's heart? Nye Tian was shocked and overjoyed. Although he had seen the mystic Rock King in his previous life, he didn't take it seriously and didn't study it. Nye Tian always thought that the mystic Rock King was the same as the puppets and had to be sealed with a seal scroll. But now, it seemed that there might be other mysteries. Rui Qianyu obviously realized this as well. She frowned slightly and attacked again before the mystic Rock King's head and body could reunite. Severed leaf, sacred finger. With a point of her finger, a sharp force gushed out and blasted directly at the mystic Rock King's heart. Mr. Z immediately saw through Rui Qianyu's intention and growled, "I'll help you." She leaped up and a purple flame appeared in her palm. With a slight movement, it instantly spread into a fire dragon. With a roar, it rushed toward the mystic Rock King. Ha! The mystic Rock King's head flew back and suddenly let out a wild roar. Its two huge fists waved left and right, blocking the attacks of Rui Qianyu and Mr. Z. At this moment, Nye Tian realized something. He glanced at the mystic Rock King in front of him and immediately rushed over. The Divine War Imperial Fist landed on the heart of a mystic Rock King. Bang! The mystic Rock King's body immediately fell apart and a huge hole appeared in its chest. This was Nye Tian's absolute strength. The power of one punch was enough to smash a mystic Rock King. As expected, Nye Tian saw a blue crystal the size of a baby's fist shining in the hole in the mystic Rock King's chest and immediately understood. This blue crystal was the mystic Rock King's mystic rock heart. As long as the mystic rock heart was taken out, the mystic Rock King would be crippled. Bang! Without hesitation, Nye Tian didn't wait for the mystic Rock King to recover. He threw another punch and took out the mystic rock heart. The instant the mystic rock heart was taken out, the mystic Rock King immediately shattered and turned into a pile of lifeless gravel after landing on the ground. Nye Tian held the blue crystal in his hand and the corner of his mouth curled up. He shouted, "The mystic Rock King's weak point is in their chest. Dig out the blue crystal in their chest." When the other martial artists saw the blue crystal in Nye Tian's hand, their eyes instantly turned red. That blue crystal was crystal clear and emitted a lustrous blue light. Its color and luster was 100 times rounder than a top-grade essence crystal. One look and it was obvious that it was a good item. When they heard Nye Tian's cold voice, these martial artists went crazy. The eyes that looked at the mystic rock king were no longer filled with fear but greed and passion. Damn it! That blue crystal is definitely a Tier 9 crystal. We can't let the people inside benefit. Your father is coming. That's right. We can't just watch. That is definitely a good item. Even if we have to risk our lives, we have to snatch a piece. When the people outside the canyon saw that there were benefits, they also went crazy and actually surged over like a tide. Humans die for wealth and birds die for food. This sentence was not wrong at all. The martial artists who were invaded by the blood chi were already mentally affected. At this time, there was a tempting item in front of them. How could they care so much? Nie Tian stomped his foot and quickly pulled out. These mystic rock kings could be left to others to handle. The mystic rock heart is indeed a good item. Nie Tian looked at the mystic rock heart in his hand again and murmured, "Just nice, I can use it to upgrade my sword Absolute Heaven Slash. But this mystic rock heart seems to be a little small." As he said, Nie Tian looked at the mystic rock king who was being besieged by Rui Qianyu and the woman in purple. If he could use the mystic rock king's mystic rock heart to upgrade the sword Absolute Heaven Slash, then it would be more than enough. Chapter 266. At this time, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng each had a mystic stone heart in their hands, but they were obviously not satisfied. Nie Tian wanted the mystic stone heart of the mystic stone king, and they naturally wanted it too. Among everyone, these two were the strongest, except for Rui Qianyu and Mr. Z. As the saying goes, the stronger the strength, the greater the ambition. Looking at the enraged mystic stone king, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng could no longer hold back and attack. Bang! Chu Shifeng was obviously more impatient than Dongfang Du. With a roar, he attacked with the sky-splitting halberd. A golden flame shot out from the halberd and hit the mystic stone king. Besieged by Rui Qianyu and the others, the mystic stone king's body had long been torn apart. It was riddled with scars and seemed to be unable to hold on any longer and would collapse. Roar! But the mystic stone king obviously would not give up. With a roar, he punched at Chu Shifeng. Boom! Under the punch, a fierce wind rushed over. Chu Shifeng suddenly felt the space around him stagnate, and his whole body seemed to be unable to move. The mystic stone king's oppressive aura was very strong, far exceeding Chu Shifeng's expectations. "Help!" Chu Shifeng screamed. He was so scared that his face was drained of blood. Nie Tian was by Chu Shifeng's side, but he did not intend to make a move. Chu Shifeng looked decent on the surface, but his heart was gloomy. Leaving him alive would only pose a threat to the Duanmu siblings. Poof! At this time, a sudden force appeared in the air, and with a flash of silver light, Chu Shifeng's body flew out of the mystic stone king's attack range. Although it was only for a moment, Natian saw it very clearly. Chu Shifeng was pierced by an extremely small silver needle, and the silver needle seemed to have shot into the space between his eyebrows. Nie Tian immediately looked at Dongfang Du, and his face couldn't help but sink. Dongfang Du looked at Nie Tian and smirked. "Nie Tian City Lord, if you don't want to save him, then won't you let me save him? Brother Dongfang, thank you for your help." Chu Shifeng escaped death. After he stood still, his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He didn't notice that Dongfang Du had secretly attacked him and even thanked him sincerely. "You're welcome. You and I are friends. Besides, I'm not as narrow-minded as some people. I can obviously save people, but I choose to stand by and do nothing. I don't know what their intentions are," Dongfang Du said as he looked at Nie Tian. Chu Shifeng was not a fool. Of course, he knew that the person Dongfang Du was talking about was Nie Tian. He smiled cold and looked at Nie Tian with an undisguised fierceness. Nie Tian originally had a grudge against him, and this time, the conflict between the two had undoubtedly intensified to the point where one side would not rest until the other was dead. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, I didn't expect young Master Dongfang to be so good at scheming in addition to his high talent and ruthless methods. It really makes people have a whole new level of respect for you. Nie Tian didn't know what Dongfang Du had done to Chu Shifeng, but he knew that Dongfang Du didn't suddenly show mercy by saving people. He had other intentions. It was just that Chu Shifeng was too stupid and couldn't see anything. Dongfang Du raised his eyebrows and didn't say anything. His eyes glanced at Chu Shifeng at a certain moment and smiled coldly in his heart. Chu Shifeng, you have been poisoned by my jade blood silver needles. In less than 3 days, the poison will take effect. At that time, you will have to stay by my side and be a slave. The dignified third genius of the Nanshan region, the first personal disciple of the palace lord of Qiankuan Palace, is about to become my slave. No matter how I think about it, I'm excited. The Transformation Sect and the Qiankuan Palace were the two top forces of the Nanshan region, and they had always been incompatible. As the young lord of the Transformation Sect, Dongfang Du saved the first personal disciple of the palace lord of Qiankuan Palace. Anyone could smell the unusual atmosphere of such a thing. The silver needles that Dongfang Du inserted into Chu Shifeng's glabella were called the jade blood silver needles. The jade blood silver needles were made from the venom of the jade blood silver snake, Dongfang Du's primordial spirit, for 49 days. It contained the venom of the jade blood silver snake. There was no antidote for this poison, and only Dongfang Du's blood could save his life. Chu Shifeng had been poisoned by the jade blood silver needles. Once the poison took effect, he only had 2 choices, either die or become Dongfang Du's slave. With Chu Shifeng's fear of death, he was determined to be a slave. Although he knew what Dongfang Du did to Chu Shifeng, Nie Tian didn't have the mind to care. The most important thing at the moment was to take care of the Profound Stone King. If he could get the heart of the Profound Stone, that would be the best. At this time, the Profound Stone King was already on the verge of collapse under the siege of Rui Qianyu and Mr. Z, the 2 true element realm experts. Dance of the Fire Dragon. Seeing that the Profound Stone King couldn't hold on any longer, Mr. Z shouted and a line of fire sprayed out from her hand. It immediately turned into a fire dragon and rushed over violently. Bodhi hand. Rui Qianyu also realized that the Profound Stone King couldn't hold on any longer. Her palm grabbed down from the void, wanting to dig out the heart of the Profound Stone. Boom! Under the combined attack of the two, the Profound Stone King finally couldn't hold on any longer. Its entire chest exploded, bursting out countless gravel. Immediately after, the Profound Stone King's body started to crack from the head. Crack! 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 The spider web-like cracks rapidly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, there were already frightening cracks on the Profound Stone King's body. The heart of the Profound Stone. Seeing this scene, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng's eyes widened. Nie Tian's eyes also revealed a touch of passion at this moment. Everyone knew that the Profound Stone King was about to die. Next, it was the crucial moment to fight for the heart of the Profound Stone. Ha! Ha! As expected, the Profound Stone King let out a painful roar. Its already cracked hands covered its head, as if trying to stop its body from exploding. Unfortunately, it was to no avail. Boom! In the next moment, there was an explosion in the air, and the Profound Stone King's body directly exploded. In an instant, gravel collapsed, and countless stones shot out from the center of the explosion in all directions, covering the entire canyon. All of a sudden, heart-wrenching screams could be heard in the canyon. These stones were all from the 9 underworld devil world. They were incomparably hard, comparable to the attack of a rank 3 or rank 4 spirit weapon. Ordinary giant spirit realm martial artists would find it difficult to resist, not to mention these martial artists who were greatly weakened by the blood qi. In the next moment, the martial artists in the canyon hurriedly circulated their essence force and defended themselves. Rumble! A rain of stones fell from the sky, and there were sounds of explosions all around. The canyon was smashed open one after another. However, Nye Tian directly activated the extreme wood jade sky armor, completely ignoring the stone rain. His eyes stared fixedly at the center of the explosion. At the center of the explosion, after all the gravel scattered, a blue crystal about the size of a human head appeared. The blue halo scattered several meters away, causing the air to have a magical feeling. Chapter 267. Snatch it! In the next moment, everyone had the same thought. The value of a blue crystal the size of a human head was unimaginable. One-leaf Bodhi. Rui Qianyu, who was closest to the blue crystal, was the first to make a move. An emerald-green leaf appeared in the air. In an instant it grew to several meters in size, like a piece of green cloth, and wrapped around the blue crystal. Don't even think about it. Mr. Z, who was not far from Rui Qianyu, naturally would not stand by and watch. With a shout, she struck out with her palm, and a line of fire turned into a fire dragon, breaking through the air. Boom! Just as the green leaf was about to wrap around the blue crystal, the fire dragon appeared and burned the leaf into ashes. You! Rui Qianyu frowned slightly, and her gaze toward Mr. Z finally turned cold. If you want the heart of the mystical stone, show me what you're capable of. Mr. Z laughed awkwardly. With a leap, he flew directly toward the heart of the mystical stone. You overestimate yourself, Rui Qianyu shouted cold. Her delicate body shook, and countless green leaves appeared behind her. One by one, they formed a large green net. Nye Tian looked at the leaves behind Rui Qianyu and frowned slightly. He thought to himself, looking at the veins and texture of the leaves, it should be the leaves of the thousand-leaf Bodhi. Could it be that Rui Qianyu's primordial spirit is the thousand-leaf Bodhi? With that thought in mind, Nye Tian observed the leaves behind Rui Qianyu even more carefully. He discovered that there was a faint layer of white light on it, like the luster of jade. Nye Tian couldn't figure out why. Nye Tian had seen the primordial spirit of the thousand-leaf Bodhi before. It was one of the rare 8th-grade legendary primordial spirits, and it was a wood spirit. Rumor had it that the thousand-leaf Bodhi was a sacred tree from the ancient times. It was a primordial spirit that existed since the beginning of the world and possessed an extremely strong life force. It was precisely because of the strong life force of the thousand-leaf Bodhi that martial artists who possessed the primordial spirit of the thousand-leaf Bodhi would have an almost immortal body once they cultivated to the celestial emperor realm. However, the leaves behind Rui Qianyu were very similar to the thousand-leaf Bodhi, but with a faint layer of jade luster. It was a little strange. Nye Tian's guess was almost right. Rui Qianyu's primordial spirit was not the thousand Bodhi, but it was a variant of the thousand-leaf jade Bodhi. When Dongfang Du, Chu Shifeng, and the others saw the green Bodhi net behind Raindrop Thousand Leaves, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Although the Bodhi green net seemed to be only a thin layer, as if it would break with a light poke, the dazzling aura it exuded was definitely not a bluff. As long as one was entangled by the Bodhi green net, it would be very difficult to escape. She looked back. Her feet were wrapped by the Bodhi green net, and she couldn't move. You! Mr. Z looked at Rui Qianyu coldly. He was so angry that he couldn't speak. Humph! Rui Qianyu chuckled. If you want the heart of the profound stone, you have to show me what you're capable of. The battle between the two women was thrilling, and the martial artists below were all stunned. If they were to fight with Rui Qianyu or Mr. Z for the heart of the profound stone, they probably wouldn't even be able to resist their aura. Good chance. Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng laughed at the same time. The two women were fighting for it. This was a good chance for them to make a move. Almost at the same time, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng leaped up together and flew toward the heart of the profound stone. Both of them were extremely fast, and they were equally matched. Unfortunately, Chu Shifeng was closer to the heart of the profound stone and had the geographical advantage. Hence, it looked like she was about to snatch it first. It's not that easy. Dongfang Du smiled sinisterly. With a point of his finger, a blood jade needle shot out like lightning. Clang! The blood jade needle hit the heart of the profound stone and made a crisp sound. The heart of the profound stone was not damaged at all, but it flew out diagonally. As for Nie Tian, he seemed to have calculated everything. He had been waiting at the side since a long time ago, standing in the direction where the heart of the profound stone flew out. With just a gentle lift of his hand, Nie Tian caught the heart of the profound stone in his hand. Without even looking at it, he directly put it into his space ring. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Of course, it was not a coincidence that Nie Tian had been standing at this place since a long time ago. He had been waiting for the heart of the profound stone to fly over. He had long since calculated that Rui Qianyu and the purple-clothed woman's strength were on par, and the two of them would definitely restrain each other. While they were restraining each other, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng would definitely take action at the right time. Chu Shifeng's position was more advantageous, but Dongfang Du would not let him succeed. He would definitely use the blood jade needle to send the heart of the profound stone flying. Therefore, Nie Tian had come to wait for his prey. He had accurately seen Dongfang Du's position and stood in a line with him and the heart of the profound stone. Of course, he would be able to wait for his prey to be delivered to his mouth. Nie Tian. Dongfang Du was still in the air. When he saw that Nie Tian had already kept the heart of the profound stone, his face immediately darkened. He shouted out Nie Tian's name word by word, his sinister face itching with hatred. Of course, good things belong to those who are capable. You've already thrown it to me directly. It's not appropriate for me to not take it. Nie Tian smiled slyly, and his gaze immediately turned to Rui Qianyu and Mr. Z. Rui Qianyu's expression was indifferent. Clearly, she had no intention of continuing to fight with Nie Tian. Mr. Z frowned slightly and thought to himself, "This person is someone that Master has instructed me to kill. Let him hold onto the heart of the mystical stone. If there's a chance, I'll kill him directly and snatch the heart of the mystical stone." With that thought in mind, Mr. Z did not make a move. When Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng landed, they saw that Rui Qianyu and Mr. Z had no intention of continuing to fight, so they did not dare to make another move. Chu Shifeng looked at Nie Tian with an extremely sinister gaze, wishing that he could eat the latter alive. However, Nie Tian pretended not to see it, and even deliberately put on a carefree and complacent look. Of course, Nie Tian was happy to snatch the heart of the profound stone. Although this was a little disadvantageous for Rui Qianyu, Nie Tian could completely compensate her with dragon blood after leaving the old tomb. As long as he completely refined the heart of the profound stone, Nie Tian was confident that he could upgrade the Heaven's Slash sword from a 3rd-level spirit weapon to a 5th-level spirit weapon. With his current attainments in weapon refinement, he could at most refine a 5th-level spirit weapon, and this was under the condition that the Heaven's Slash sword had already taken shape. If he were to refine the weapon by himself, it would already be good if he could refine a 4th-level spirit weapon. When everyone saw that Nie Tian had obtained the largest heart of the profound stone, although they were envious, they did not dare to think too much when they thought of the scene of Nie Tian single-handedly fighting against 2 mystic stone guards. Alright. Now that we've dealt with the mystic stone guards, we can focus on breaking the barrier of the cave. Nie Tian smiled faintly and looked at the cave in the depths of the canyon. The cave was pitch black, and only the entrance could be seen. The inside of the cave seemed to be a black hole of nothingness. It was pitch black. Everyone thought of what Nie Tian had said just now, that there were countless 9th-level medicinal herbs, 9th-level emperor weapons, and heaven-level martial arts techniques in the cave, and instantly became spirited. Chapter 268. Pung, pung, pung. In the canyon, there were sounds of explosions, one after another. Hundreds of giant warriors attacked at the same time, and the colorful attacks merged into one. It was very exciting. On the cave entrance, there was a layer of faint halo barrier. Every time it suffered an attack, a vortex depression would appear, but it would soon return to normal. Nie Tian watched from the side and frowned slightly. This barrier was stronger than he expected. According to the current level of attack, it would take at least 3 days. 3 days, I wonder if these people can maintain their passion for 3 days. Nie Tian looked at the excited warriors in front of him and couldn't help but worry. Right now, these cultivators were frantically attacking because Nie Tian had told them that there was a Tier 9 treasure inside the cave. Although this was already enough motivation, if they were to persist for 3 days without sleep or rest, it would be almost impossible. Especially when these warriors had blood qi in their bodies. Once their elemental energy was exhausted, the feeling of blood qi would become more and more obvious. It was even more impossible for them to continue attacking. Rui Qianyu, Mr. Z, and a few other experts were also attacking non-stop. The barrier needed to accumulate a certain amount of attack power before it could be broken. One attack from Rui Qianyu was almost equivalent to hundreds of giant warriors attacking together. Time passed bit by bit. 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, but the barrier was still the same, as if there was no damage at all. Gradually, the martial artists began to feel irritated. Monarch **Ker. Just what is this cave protected by? How can it be so strong? It seems like it can never be broken. That F***King shield is only a thin layer. How can it be so hard to break through? Yeah, this can't be a trap, and it can't be broken at all, right? I'm about to die of exhaustion. I can't maintain my elemental energy, and my Yuan meridians and Yuan spirit are starting to hurt inexplicably. Now that you mention it, my Yuan meridians are also starting to hurt. What's going on? Could it be that this cave is strange again? Everyone's elemental energy was greatly depleted. The blood qi in their bodies began to become obvious, and their Yuan meridians and Yuan spirit began to hurt faintly. However, they didn't know that they were in an illusion. They thought that they had consumed too much of their elemental energy, causing their elemental meridians and elemental spirits to start hurting. What was even more exaggerated was that some people even thought that the pain in the Yuan meridians Yuan spirit had something to do with the cave in front of them. This was because this cave looked too strange. His divine sense could not enter it. Moreover, it was also emitting a bloody, baleful aura. No matter how he looked at it, there was something fishy about it. Silence. Nie Tian stood up and shouted, "Everyone, listen to me. The treasures in this cave are of very high rank, that's why they set up such a strong barrier to protect it. Think about it, if this barrier was so easy to break, how could the treasures in the cave be preserved for such a long time? They would have long been robbed by the warriors who entered the ancient tomb." Sigh. The Nie Tian city lord was right. Monarch **Ker. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll break open the barrier. A Tier 9 spirit artifact, if it's obtained by me, I can even fight a heavenly emperor powerhouse. Fight your sister. You're only at the first layer of the giant spirit realm. Even if I give you the 9th grade spirit weapon, you won't be able to unleash its full power. It's better if you give it to me. Maybe it can help me step into the Shumi spirit capital and challenge the various geniuses. Haha. You all can forget about it. The Tier 9 Emperor rank spirit artifact is mine. Everyone roared with laughter and finally started bombarding the barrier again. Nie Tian sucked in a deep breath. His expression eased up considerably. Fortunately, these martial artists had the baleful aura in their bodies. Even their minds were weakened considerably. Otherwise, it would not be so easy to deceive either. Although the protective barrier did not show any signs of being damaged, Nie Tian could sense that the protective barrier was currently weakening little by little. When it weakened to a certain extent, it would naturally break open. Teacher Royu, consume this Tier 3 essence consolidating pill. It can let you recover some essence energy. Nie Tian walked to Rui Qianyu's side and handed her a Tier 3 essence consolidating pill. Fortunately, Nie Tian brought along a vast amount of spirit pills before setting off, in case of emergencies. At this time, it was finally put to use. Following that, Nie Tian gave Mr. Purple, Dongfang Du, Chu Shifeng and the rest a Tier 3 spirit pill each. He himself only consumed a Tier 2 spirit pill. Rui Qianyu and the rest were stronger. The effects of consuming the spirit pills were greater. Nie Tian still had hundreds of spirit pills on hand. He distributed them all to the other martial artists. These spirit pills could not only allow them to recover some essence energy, they could also help them resist the baleful aura in their bodies. Nie Tian had already prepared for the worst. If he waited until everyone's essence energy was exhausted and they still could not break the protective barrier, he would use Star Souls. If Star Souls still did not work, then he would consume all the spirit pills and use 3 seals of the War God. In short, no matter what price he had to pay, Nie Tian must break the protective barrier. If he could not break the protective barrier, the illusion would not disappear. Then everyone would die in the bloody massacre ancient tomb. Everyone's origin spirit would become the origin spirit sacrifice for the corpse demon lord. This was definitely not a scene that Nie Tian wanted to see. Time passed slowly. 1 hour, 2 hours, until 1.5 days later. Everyone looked like they were half dead. The protective barrier was still the same. This made everyone lose their fighting spirit. Although Nie Tian would take out some spirit pills from time to help the martial artists recover their essence energy, the most important thing was that there was no movement from the protective barrier. Nie Tian frowned. He knew that if this continued, even if there were more than Tier 9 spiritual weapons and spirit pills in the cave, it would no longer be tempting. He was very curious. Why did he feel that the protective barrier was weakening bit by bit, but there was no movement at all? I can't take it anymore. My essence meridian hurts like it's going to explode. Suddenly, someone screamed in pain and fell to the ground. He clutched his stomach and rolled around in pain. My essence meridian seems to be hurting too. Oh no, it's really going to explode. The next moment, someone screamed again. Then, like a contagious disease, more and more martial artists clutched their stomachs and screamed in pain. Brother Nie Tian, are you sure? What if this cave is not the illusory eye you were talking about? At this time, Duanmu Weiner suddenly walked over. She frowned and began to question Nie Tian. Dongfang Du, Chu Shifeng and the others also came to Nie Tian's side. Although they did not speak, the meaning in their eyes was clear. They all thought that Nie Tian was mistaken. This cave is the illusory eye. Rui Qianyu walked over and said indifferently. Nie Tian could see it. Rui Qianyu's 9-colored pupils could also see it. This cave was the place with the densest evil blood qi in the entire illusory realm. Obviously, it was the core of the illusory realm. Nie Tian took a deep breath and punched the entrance of the cave. Bang! The huge fist shadow bombarded the protective barrier like a stone thrown into a lake, stirring up a layer of ripples, but only a layer of ripples. Do I really have to use the Star Soul? Frowning, Nie Tian thought to himself. Chapter 269. Crack! Just when everyone had yet to react, another crisp sound rang out, as if glass or crystal was about to crack. Everyone suddenly raised their heads and looked towards the cave. On the protective barrier, the originally smooth and bright surface actually had a small spider web-like crack. The crack was very small, but left on the bright surface of the protective barrier, it was rather conspicuous. Crack! It was indeed a crack. Finally realizing this, countless people rubbed their eyes and stared at the protective barrier with burning gazes. The protective barrier has cracked. After a long while, someone finally reacted and roared in agitation, tears almost flowing out of his eyes. It really cracked! Nie Tian let out a long sigh of relief. Just when everyone was close to despair, a crack appeared on the protective barrier. This was undoubtedly a powerful injection for the already exhausted people. With this powerful injection, even a half-paralyzed person could be as lively as a dragon and as lively as a tiger for a while. Looking at the crack on the protective barrier and thinking of the thing in the cave, everyone's eyes instantly turned red. Motherf ****. I'm going all out. Even if I die, I want to die next to a level 9 Emperor spiritual weapon. Only then will I live up to my name as a martial artist. Right. My yuan meridians are aching, so be it. Later, as long as I have a level 9 spiritual pill, even if my yuan meridians are all destroyed, I can still become a peerless martial artist. Everyone, buck up. Attack together, we can definitely destroy this protective barrier. Everyone had already spent a day and a half to break through the protective barrier, practically without sleep or rest. Now that they saw hope, without needing Nie Tian to urge them, all of them were 120% focused. Nie Tian had a face of speechlessness. These people were indeed affected by the murderous aura, they were all very manic. To be able to risk their lives like this, they were really drunk. Rui Qianyu, this is the last spiritual pill I have, take it. Nie Tian handed the last spiritual pill to Rui Qianyu and said with a solemn face. Rui Qianyu seemed to have noticed that Nie Tian had suddenly changed the way he addressed her. Her brows slightly furrowed and she said cold, no need. After saying this, she turned around and attacked the barrier again. Nie Tian's lips curled up. He couldn't help but shake his head and swallow the pill. He didn't know why he called out Rui Qianyu's name. In any case, the other party was no longer a teacher of Tyrant Cloud Academy, and Nie Tian was no longer a student of Tyrant Cloud Academy. Time passed slowly. 1 hour, 2 hours. The cracks on the protective barrier grew larger and larger. But strangely, it didn't shatter completely. It was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. No matter how you attacked it, it wouldn't shatter. Little 9. Nie Tian frowned slightly. He suddenly thought of something and woke up the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast, who was cultivating. Nie Tian really didn't want to use his Star Soul because he knew that once the barrier was broken and the illusion disappeared, he might have to face the Corpse Demon Lord next. Although the Corpse Demon King had been seriously injured by Nie Tian after more than 100 years of recuperation, who knew what kind of strength it had now? If it was a true energy realm, or even a divine will realm expert, Nie Tian would really want to cry but have no tears. Therefore, he had to keep his Star Soul in case of emergencies. Now that everyone's essence force was almost exhausted, Nie Tian really had no other way. So he turned his attention to the 9 Extreme Chaos Beast. Since this little guy dared to swallow the 8th grade medicinal herb, the heavenly ice fragrance fruit, it must have an abnormally strong body. Coupled with its extremely fast speed, the power produced by its collision was almost no less than the attack of a high-level giant soul realm warrior. Maybe Little 9 could break the protective barrier. Yeah. Little 9 opened its sleepy eyes and stared at Nie Tian with a pair of big red eyes, as if it was a little unhappy that the latter had disturbed its sweet dreams. Little guy, can you break that barrier? Nie Tian laughed and said directly. Yeah. The 9 Extreme Chaos Beast turned around and looked at the protective barrier that was on the verge of breaking. It pouted, as if it was a little unhappy. Little 9, as long as you break the protective barrier, I will give you 3 drops of dragon blood. How about it? Nie Tian saw that the little guy was unhappy, so he could only patiently persuade it. Yeah. Little 9 really understood Nie Tian's meaning, and cried out excitedly. Then, it immediately lowered its head, as if thinking about something. Then, it raised its head, raised its little hand, and stretched out its 4 little claws. Then, it was a little dissatisfied, and stretched out its other little hand, stretching out a total of 8 little claws. Nie Tian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This little guy was quite smart, and it actually knew how to bargain. Okay. 8 drops it is. Nye Tian thought for a while, gritted his teeth, and agreed. The 9 extreme chaos beast was in Nye Tian's chaotic original coffin anyway. Even if he gave it 8 drops of dragon blood, it would not be a loss. Yeah. Who knew that little 9 would shake its little head, and then use its little hand to support its chin? It was deep in thought. Then, a ray of light flowed out of its body and drew a circle in the air. It actually drew a bowl, and it was a big bowl. Damn. You're crazy. Nye Tian was stunned for a long time. When he finally understood what the little guy meant, he couldn't control his emotions and screamed. Little 9's meaning was very clear. It wanted 8 big bowls of dragon blood. A bowl was not enough, and it had to be a big bowl. What did this fellow think dragon blood was? Swill from a restaurant? Nye Tian estimated that even if he mined all the dragon blood stones in Tianluo Mountain, there might not be 8 big bowls. Although there was a lot of divine dragon blood, if it was a living divine dragon, 8 big buckets of blood could be drained. But the dragon blood of the dragon blood stones was the essence of the divine dragon's dragon chi. It was fused into the huge rocks underground for tens of thousands of years to form the dragon blood stones. It would be good if there were a few bowls left. This little guy wanted 8 big bowls when he opened his mouth. It was even blacker than Nye Tian, much blacker. Little 9 saw Nye Tian's surprised expression and instantly knew that its request was too much. It removed 1 finger, leaving 7 fingers. No. 4 bowls at most. Nye Tian thought for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth and gave the most he could accept. Little 9's eyebrows squeezed out a Chuan character. It was obvious that it was very dissatisfied. However, when it saw Nye Tian's desperate expression, it finally let out a squeak and nodded its head, which meant that it agreed. Do it. Nye Tian smiled faintly, but in his heart, he said, Little fellow, anyway, we didn't say when to deliver the goods. When my strength advances to the heavenly Dharch realm, I can casually go to the demon world to find a few demon dragons for you to suck blood. At that time, don't talk about 4 bowls of dragon blood. Even if you want to bathe in dragon blood, it won't be a problem. You're still too inexperienced to play with me. As Nye Tian thought about it, the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up. Swish. Right at this time, the 9 extremes chaos beast turned into a red light and surged out of Nye Tian's body, shooting towards the protective barrier like lightning. Clang. A red light flashed and crashed onto the protective barrier. It actually gave off a crisp sound. Immediately, the red light disappeared and entered Nye Tian's body. Everyone did not react to what happened just now. They looked at Nye Tian in surprise. Boom. Right at the next moment, the protective barrier suddenly sounded with a violent explosion. Chapter 270. As the sound of the explosion spread out, everyone's nerves tightened as they stared unblinkingly at the barrier. Crack. 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 In the next moment, cracks began to appear on the barrier, and the cracks immediately exploded, turning into cracks. The barrier is about to break. Nye Tian's heart was in his throat, and his expression became sluggish at this moment. More than 100 giant spirit realm cultivators and 2 true element realm cultivators had been bombarding the barrier for 2 days, and now it was finally about to break. How could anyone not be excited? Nye Tian was so excited that he didn't notice that little 9, who was in the primal chaos origin coffin, was dizzy. He shook his head fiercely, and only then did he become much more clear-headed. The barrier was already on the verge of collapse, and little 9's ferocious attack just now was like the last straw that broke the camel's back, finally breaking the barrier. Yeah. Little 9 called out twice, reminding Nye Tian not to forget the agreement between them. But seeing that Nye Tian was about to go into a daze, he could only go to sleep and cultivate. Boom. Finally, when there were enough cracks, the entire barrier could no longer hold on and shattered. The moment the barrier broke, the environment of the entire canyon immediately changed. The surroundings were filled with a pungent bloody fog that made it hard for people to breathe. Damn! What's going on? Where did so much bloody fog come from? My Yuan Meridian, it hurts! Run, there's a monster! In an instant, all kinds of shouts rang out. Rumble! Just when everyone had not reacted to what was going on, the ground suddenly shook, and the entire canyon collapsed at this moment. It was as if a huge force had come from the ground and instantly lifted the entire canyon. What's going on? Rui Qinyu frowned, and a rare trace of panic appeared in her eyes. Mr. Z, Dongfang Du, Chu Shifeng, and the others all had a look of horror on their faces. Obviously, they were scared out of their wit. They didn't know what was going on, so they all turned to look at Nie Tian. Nie Tian frowned and murmured, "Corpse Luo Demon Monarch, are you finally coming out?" Boom! Boom! In the next moment, violent sounds rang out continuously, and the entire canyon seemed to be lifted by an invisible giant hand into the air. The people in the canyon screamed crazily, as if they had encountered the end of the world. Boom! Suddenly, the gigantic hand that was supporting the canyon disappeared. The canyon lost its support and fell rapidly. What was even more surprising was that the original ground seemed to have disappeared. The canyon had fallen into a bottomless abyss, and it continued to fall faster and faster, as if there was no end. After an unknown period of time, Nie Tian finally felt a physical thing appear below. He stomped his feet hard, and a pair of proud sword wings appeared on his back. He estimated that he had fallen for several minutes, and the accumulated impact was so great that even a giant spirit realm martial artist would find it hard to endure. The other martial artists also used their divine abilities and leaped high into the air, leaving the canyon. Boom! A loud sound rang out, and the canyon fell to the ground. Gravel and dust flew everywhere, and the scene didn't dissipate for a long time. A moment later, the flying sand and dust finally settled. The martial artists also fell to the ground, but only a few dozen survived. The others were crushed into meat paste along with the gravel. After landing, Nie Tian looked around and saw that everyone he was familiar with was still alive. Even Duanmu Lu and Duanmu Weiner weren't injured. There's light. After calming down a little, Nie Tian saw that he was in a long and narrow tunnel, and there was a faint light at the end of the tunnel. Then, the surviving martial artists saw that they were in a tunnel, and they all started shouting. "What is this place? Why are we here? Where's the promised 9th grade spirit pill? Where's the 9th grade spirit artifact? Where's the heaven grade martial technique? Fuck, did that guy called Nie Tian lie to us?" All sorts of shouts resounded, and many gazes looked at Nie Tian with ferocious expressions. Nie Tian didn't care about them at all. These people were too stupid, and there was no need to explain to them. If not for Nie Tian, they would have been devoured by the bloody aura, and they would have become sacrifices for the corpse demon lord. Nie Tian scanned the end of the tunnel with his divine sense, and to his surprise, he found out that this place seemed to be an underground palace. This palace should have existed for a long time, and the canyon just now was above the underground palace. The protective barrier was broken, and the illusion disappeared. The canyon couldn't bear the power of the barrier, and it was pierced through, which was why everyone fell in. "I can't believe someone built a palace thousands of meters below the ground," Nie Tian muttered to himself as he subconsciously walked towards the other end of the tunnel. "Amazing!" Nie Tian murmured to himself as he subconsciously walked towards the other end of the tunnel. If he used the proud sword wings to fly out, he could directly walk out of the bloody slaughter ancient tomb, and he would be safe. However, this was clearly not Nie Tian's personality. He had once created the first forbidden land of the heaven realm, the Dark Sea Galaxy. To him, this underground palace was like a child's toy, not worth mentioning. Moreover, behind the bloody slaughter ancient tomb was the corpse demon lord. How could Nie Tian miss such a good opportunity to meet an old friend from his previous life? Seeing Nie Tian walk over, the others looked at each other for a while, and finally couldn't suppress the curiosity in their hearts, and they all followed. "Big brother Nyetian, what is this place? It's so eerie, so scary." Duanmu Wainer stuck close to Nyetian and whispered. "Waner, don't bother benefactor," Duanmu Lu reprimanded, indicating Duanmu Wainer not to say anything. Duanmu Lu was a good person, until this moment. He still maintained his respect for Nyetian, and called him benefactor. Rui Qianyu walked beside Nyetian, frowning. Her usually cold face seemed to be in a dilemma. Obviously, she had a lot of questions in her mind, but she didn't know if she should ask Nyetian. In fact, Nyetian was also confused. He only knew that this underground palace was definitely related to the corpse demon lord, but he didn't know anything else. The entire passage was 3,000 to 4,000 meters long, and it was very safe, without any trap. Perhaps the builders thought that the underground palace was very safe, so they didn't set up any trap. Soon, everyone came to the end of the passage. The scene that entered Nyetian's eyes left him dumbfounded. In front of him was a wide open space, and there was a huge pool with a radius of more than 1,000 meters. The pool was filled with a red sticky liquid, which looked like blood. There was a faint light in the air, allowing everyone to see the pool clearly. "What's in this pool? Why does it look like blood? Is this a blood pool?" Someone said with a face full of fear. "I heard that the demon race would kill some spirit beasts, gather their blood, and then let the little demons grow up in the blood pool. Those demons that grow up in the blood pool can absorb the power of the spirit beasts, and are very strong," someone said. Chapter 271. When they saw Nyetian walk into the blood pool, everyone stared at him with their eyes wide open. Their eyes were filled with fear, doubt, and a little restlessness. Nyetian walked into the blood pool step by step. His face was slightly pale, but it became rosier and more lustrous. The martial artist was right. The pool in front of him was indeed a blood pool. Moreover, it was the blood pool of the demon race. This pool was called the soul-gathering blood pool. It was one of the most mysterious cultivation techniques of the demon race. The kings of the demon race had spent hundreds and thousands of years capturing countless spirit beasts, extracting their blood essence, and gathering it together to form a huge blood pool. Then, they would use the demon race's secret technique to give the blood pool a mysterious ability that could increase a martial artist's cultivation speed by 100 times. Moreover, it could constantly strengthen a martial artist's martial body. It was dozens of times better than any cultivation room invented by humans. The kings of the demon race called this blood pool the soul-gathering blood pool. Obviously, the soul-gathering blood pool in front of him could not be compared to the authentic soul-gathering blood pool in the 9 underworld. It was rumored that the authentic soul-gathering blood pool was thousands of miles wide. It was no longer a pool, but an ocean formed by the blood of spirit beasts. Just thinking about it was terrifying. One of Nyetian's greatest rivals in his previous life, the 9 underworld's demon emperor Qi Wuxiaoshan, had been cultivating in the soul-gathering blood pool since he was young. His demon body was indestructible, especially after he reached the heavenly emperor realm. Nyetian guessed that the soul-gathering blood pool in front of him was created by the corpse demon lord. Although the scale was millions of miles away from the real soul-gathering blood pool, it definitely had the effect of improving cultivation and strengthening the martial body. Nyetian guessed that the purpose of the soul-gathering blood pool was to reform his physical body. Apart from improving cultivation speed and strengthening the martial body, the soul-gathering blood pool had many other mysterious effects. Helping the remnant soul to reform the physical body was one of these mysterious effects. Nyetian remembered that in the battle with the corpse demon Monarch in his previous life, he had directly destroyed the latter's corpse demon Monarch's physical body. Therefore, even if the latter was still alive, he would only be in the form of a remnant soul. Corpse Luo Demon King, it seems like you haven't enjoyed the soul-gathering blood pool yet. Let me help you. Nyetian chuckled in his heart. He then laid down on his back, looking extremely comfortable. Around Nye Tian, the blood in the blood pool began to churn incessantly, stirring up layers of blood-colored qi waves. This was Nye Tian absorbing the blood essence qi in the blood pool to replenish his internal energy. The faster he absorbed, the more violent the blood energy in the blood pool became. Nye Tian saw that the others were standing outside the soul-gathering blood pool, looking as if they were itching to have a try. However, none of them dared to enter the soul-gathering blood pool, so he said, "Everyone, you must have worked hard to break the protective barrier. Now you can enter the soul-gathering blood pool to recover. But remember, the blood qi in the soul-assembling blood pool is very domineering. If you really can't hold on, leave the blood pool immediately. Don't force yourself, otherwise your life will be in danger." "Nye Tian, you're saying that the soul-assembling blood pool is filled with domineering blood qi?" Rui Qianyu was the first to react. Her frosty face revealed a passionate expression. Nye Tian was stunned for a moment. He then said, "The soul-assembling blood pool is formed by gathering the blood of spiritual beasts. With the demon clan's secret technique, it can completely stimulate the blood qi in the spiritual beast's blood. Moreover, it can greatly neutralize the violent blood qi. It's especially suitable for martial artists to cultivate. Not only can it increase a martial artist's cultivation speed, but it can also strengthen a martial artist's martial body. It's very magical." Rui Qianyu couldn't help but feel excited. She nodded her head and stepped into the blood pool without hesitation. The water in the soul-assembling blood pool was slightly warm. It was like a hot spring. It was very comfortable. The moment Rui Qianyu entered the soul-assembling blood pool, she couldn't help but let out a groan. She raised her eyes and realized that Nye Tian was looking at her. She immediately returned to her cold look and closed her eyes. When the other martial artists saw that Nye Tian and Rui Qianyu had entered the soul-assembling blood pool, they couldn't help but jump in one after another. "Wow! It's so cool! It's like I'm bathing in the liquefied heaven and earth spiritual qi. I can feel every pore on my body opening up. It's true. My primordial meridians don't hurt anymore. Why are there scars on my primordial meridians? The scars are healing. This is amazing. I've just completed one great circulatory cycle. How can it be so fast? Damn. I'm going to become a peerless genius." Everyone who entered the soul-assembling blood pool let out moans of comfort. Nye Tian was speechless. He really didn't know what to say to these idiots. These martial artists' primordial meridians were injured because of the evil blood qi. Now that they were nourished by the blood qi, they naturally began to recover. Nye Tian curled his lips slightly. He no longer paid attention to the others and focused on absorbing the blood qi in the blood pool. Nye Tian's yuan qi slightly circulated and opened up all the pores on his body. He could clearly feel the hot blood qi drilling into his flesh through the opened pores and fusing with his blood and bones. Pure blood qi, this is great. With the help of the soul-assembling blood pool, my strength and martial body can be improved again. The corpse Luo Demon Monarch has really prepared a great gift for me. Nye Tian slightly closed his eyes and swam towards the center of the soul-assembling blood pool. The closer one was to the center of the soul-assembling blood pool, the purer the blood qi. At the same time, the impact on the martial artist's body would be stronger. However, Nye Tian didn't care about this kind of impact at all. He cultivated the 9 extremes war god art. Although he wasn't an innate spiritual body, his martial body would be stronger with every increase in the 9 extremes war god art. Now that Nye Tian had cultivated the 9 extremes war god art to the 2nd level, the extreme wood jade heaven realm, his martial body was basically equivalent to a low-level profound spiritual body of heaven and earth. The closer one was to the center, the faster the blood qi would be absorbed. The blood-colored qi waves around Nye Tian's body became more intense. The qi waves even exceeded half a meter, forcing him to open his eyes. When the others saw Nye Tian swimming towards the center, they followed suit. However, many of them only advanced a few meters before their faces revealed a painful expression. Their bodies couldn't bear the impact of the blood qi and their skin was about to split open. They quickly retreated obediently. After a while, there were only 4 people left behind Nye Tian: Rui Qianyu, Mr. Z, Dongfang Du, and Chu Shifeng. Nye Tian looked at the 4 provocatively and continued to swim towards the center. Slowly, the blood-colored qi waves around him grew taller and taller. They had already exceeded a meter. When the blood-colored qi waves reached about 2 meters, Chu Shifeng couldn't hold on anymore. He let out a miserable howl and quickly retreated. When he retreated to a suitable position, he looked at Nye Tian with resentment. However, he didn't dare to advance any further. Chu Shifeng couldn't imagine that a 7th-level manifestation martial artist's martial body was actually stronger than a 7th-level giant spirit martial artist. How was this possible? The two of them were separated by an entire major realm. However, Nye Tian raised his brows and smiled provocatively. His expression seemed to say, "You're not convinced? Bite me." Chapter 272. Following that, Dongfang Du followed Nye Tian for a while and gradually felt a burning pain all over his body. Blood qi rushed into his pores, as if his skin was about to split open. He shot a fierce glare at Nye Tian and finally came to a halt, no longer moving forward. Because Nye Tian cultivated the 9 extremities war god technique and had the power of 80,000 stars in his body, his physique was comparable to a true elemental martial artist. But if a high-level giant spirit martial artist used a martial skill to defend himself, Nye Tian could not compare. Pure physique was the strength of a martial artist's body, without the addition of yuan power or martial skills. In the soul-assembling blood pool, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng could not use yuan power or martial skills to prevent blood qi from entering their bodies, so there was no need to absorb blood qi. Continuing forward, Nye Tian, Rui Qianyu, and Mr. Z were almost at the core area of the soul-assembling blood pool. At this time, Nye Tian finally felt a faint burning pain all over his body. He thought for a while and stopped moving forward. Anyway, he was only absorbing blood qi, so there was no need to risk his life. Rui Qianyu and Mr. Z saw that Nye Tian had stopped, but the two did not have the slightest intention to stop and continued to move forward. Strange. Why is Rui Qianyu still moving forward? Nye Tian saw that Rui Qianyu had no intention to stop and could not help but frown, puzzled. Mr. Z moved forward because she wanted to use the soul-assembling blood pool to strengthen her physique. After all, she was originally a demonic fire without a physical body. Now that the soul-assembling blood pool was helping her strengthen her physique, of course she would not miss such a great opportunity. But why was Rui Qianyu so desperate? Nye Tian guessed that although Rui Qianyu was a true element boundary cultivator, the martial body of a female cultivator was naturally weaker than that of a male cultivator, so at this time her martial body was not stronger than Nye Tian's, perhaps even weaker. However, the blood-colored airwave around Rui Qianyu was even higher and more intense than Nye Tian's. It was even similar to Mr. Z's. This made Nye Tian very confused. Nye Tian was someone who cultivated the 9 extreme war god art, a super heaven-ranked martial art. Yet, the speed at which he absorbed blood qi was not as fast as Rui Qianyu. This was definitely a joke. Driven by intense curiosity, Nye Tian used his divine sense to carefully observe the process of Rui Qianyu absorbing the blood qi. In the soul-gathering blood pool, Rui Qianyu's body was like a bottomless pit, greedily absorbing the pure blood qi in the blood pool. Is Rui Qianyu born with a lack of blood qi? Soon, Nye Tian discovered some clues. He found that Rui Qianyu's body had very little blood qi, and there seemed to be a monster hiding in her body, desperately devouring her blood qi. This discovery left Nye Tian dumbfounded. He couldn't figure out what was going on. Nie Tian was the Heaven Realm's #1 war god in his previous life. There were not many things in this world that could escape his eyes. Unfortunately, he had encountered one right now. He certainly could not understand that Rui Qianyu was not born with a lack of blood qi, but rather acquired it. The monster-devouring blood qi in Rui Qianyu's body was none other than the blood-devouring power produced by her 9 color pupils. Although Nie Tian knew about the 9 color pupils, he did not know the process of the 9 color pupils awakening. Therefore, even if he wanted to break his skull, he would not be able to imagine that the 9 color pupils would produce the blood-devouring power. The reason why Rui Qianyu was desperately absorbing blood qi was to make up for the lack of blood qi in her body. With the replenishment of blood qi in the soul-gathering blood pool, her life could be extended by at least 3 years. Nie Tian could not understand what was going on, but he could not ask Rui Qianyu directly. Therefore, he could only suppress his curiosity for the time being, and secretly note this matter down. In the blink of an eye, an hour passed. Some martial artists could not withstand the impact of the blood qi, and had no choice but to leave the soul-gathering blood pool. Another hour passed, and even more martial artists walked out of the blood pool. Those who could last more than 2 hours in the soul-gathering blood pool were all martial artists at the 3rd level of the giant spirit realm and above. Only a freak like Nie Tian, who was only at the 7th level of the manifestation spirit realm, was able to stay close to the central region of the soul-gathering blood pool for 2 hours without any problems. Another 3 hours passed, and even Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng could not hold on any longer, and had no choice but to walk out of the soul-gathering blood pool. Although they had only lasted for 5 hours, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng were already smiling like 2 blooming chrysanthemums. After absorbing a large amount of blood qi, they temporarily stored it in their Yuan meridians, Yuan spirit. After this, as long as they slowly and thoroughly absorbed it, their strength would definitely advance by 1 level. Both of them were at the giant spirit realm, and it was extremely difficult for them to advance by 1 level. Right now, they had only stayed in the soul-gathering blood pool for 5 hours, and they had already advanced by 1 level. One could imagine how freakish the soul-gathering blood pool was. At this moment, only Nie Tian, Rui Qianyu, and Mr. Z were still cultivating in the soul-gathering blood pool. Moreover, they were close to the central region. It's already been so long, but Nie Tian still hasn't come out. How strong is his martial body? Looks like this person cannot be left alive. Dongfang Du secretly clenched his fist. Apart from disbelief, there was also endless jealousy and resentment in his eyes. He thought to himself, Nie Tian, I will definitely not let you walk out of the ancient bloody tomb alive. The more freakishly strong Nie Tian displayed, the stronger Dongfang Du's sense of danger was, and the more he would not allow Nie Tian to live. Chu Shifeng, who was at the side, also had a sinister look on his face. It was obvious that he had the same thoughts as Dongfang Du. Both of them were super geniuses of the Nanshan region. How could they allow a peerless genius like Nie Tian to develop so smoothly? The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. If one wanted to stand out, one had to be prepared to be beaten. A day later, Nie Tian and the other 2 were still in the soul-gathering blood pool, while the other warriors had gone in and out several times. Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng's resentment towards Nie Tian had reached the level of indignation. They could not wait to drag Nie Tian over and strangle him. Of course, they also detested Rui Qianyu and Mr. Z. However, their strength was much higher than theirs. Even if they wanted to kill them, they did not have the courage to do so. 3 days later, Nie Tian finally could not bear it anymore. He directly jumped up, and a pair of proud sword wings appeared on his back. He landed on the ground from the sky. This way of returning stunned everyone, and it increased the hatred of Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng. Nie Tian wanted to show these 2 guys that if you think you're a genius, then I'll use my actions to tell you. In front of me, you're not even a piece of trash. Nie Tian chose to ignore Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng's murderous eyes. He sensed the blood qi in his body. If he refined it all, it would take at least a month. But once he refined and absorbed it all, Nie Tian was confident that he could break through to the giant spirit realm. If anyone knew that Nie Tian was just a piece of trash in the Origin Meridian realm 3 months ago, and now he was about to break through to the giant spirit realm in a month, this kind of cultivation speed would definitely make thousands of warriors vomit blood and die. Chapter 273. The blood-colored waves around Rui Qianyu were twice as thick as Mr. Z's, which meant that she had absorbed at least twice as much blood qi as Mr. Z. However, their strengths were almost the same, so why was there such a huge difference in the absorption of blood qi? This was something that Nie Tian could not figure out. But what happened next shocked Nie Tian even more. A day later, Mr. Z finally could not hold on any longer and walked out of the soul-gathering blood pool. Rui Qianyu was still persevering in the blood pool. She was the only one who stood out. The other people's Yuan meridians and Yuan spirits were already filled with blood qi. Even if they entered the blood pool again, they would not be able to absorb any more blood qi. Another 3 days passed, and Rui Qianyu still did not come out. Everyone looked at the blood-colored waves in the soul-gathering blood pool, and their expressions became sluggish. No one would have thought that Rui Qianyu could actually persevere for so long. This was far beyond Nie Tian's estimation. Based on Rui Qianyu's current performance, even a high-level true element realm warrior would find it difficult to do so. Her endurance was almost at the level of a spirit wheel realm warrior. There must be something different about Raindrop Qianye's blood qi. It's definitely different from that of ordinary people. Nie Tian confirmed his previous guess. At this moment, the way Dongfang Du, Chu Shifeng, and the others looked at Rui Qianyu had obviously changed. It became more advanced and more fearful. Even Mr. Z frowned several times with a complicated expression. No one knew what he was thinking. Phew! At this moment, Rui Qianyu, who was in the soul-gathering blood pool, suddenly moved. She exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, and the blood-colored waves around her body suddenly stopped. Everyone's eyes widened as they did not know what was going on. Suddenly, Rui Qianyu's figure leaped out of the soul-gathering blood pool, and the next moment she stood in midair. Hiss! The next moment she let out a muffled groan, and large beads of sweat seeped out of her forehead, as if she was suffering from great pain. Nie Tian could see it clearly from afar. Rui Qianyu's eyes were slightly closed, and her eyeballs were trembling uncontrollably, as if they were being torn apart by a force. Rui Qianyu's eyeballs moved quickly. The pain in her eyes was so intense that it almost seeped into her soul. It was unbearable. In her spiritual world, Rui Qianyu saw that in the space of the 9-color pupil, a red light ball that was shallow on the outside but deep on the inside had appeared and was violently bombarding the space inside the 9-color pupil. Rui Qianyu knew that her rainbow pupil was about to open its second pupil. Because she had absorbed too much blood energy, the blood energy replenished the power of the blood devour. At the same time, it stimulated the 9-color pupils, causing them to open for the second time. The 9-color pupil was one of the 10 great exceptional pupils, and it was ranked 7th on the exceptional pupil list. The possessor of the 9-color pupil had a total of 9 pupils: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, white, and black. To open each color, one had to go through the pain of a phoenix's nirvana. Rui Qianyu had already opened her first pupil, the blue pupil. That heart-wrenching pain that seeped into her soul was still etched in her mind. But this time, it was clearly more intense than the last. In the space of the 9-color pupil, the red light ball suddenly expanded from the inside out. In the blink of an eye, it had become several times its original size. Rui Qianyu knew that when the red light ball filled the entire space of the 9-color pupil, she had successfully opened her eye. But this was an extremely painful process, far beyond what an ordinary person could endure. Rui Qianyu had the heavy burden of revenge on her shoulders, and her heart was far more determined than an ordinary person's. Ah! Even so, she still let out a painful cry in the next moment. Blood seeped out of her eyes, flowing along the corners of her eyes and down the sides of her cheek. Seeing this, Nie Tian immediately understood. He exclaimed in his heart, F***ck. The 9-color pupil is about to open. Nie Tian was still calm and did not shout out loud. The fact that Rui Qianyu had the 9-color pupil must be a secret, and no one could know about it. At this moment, everyone else looked at Rui Qianyu in a daze, trying to guess what had happened. Mr. Z, Dongfang Du, and the rest saw that Rui Qianyu's face was in pain, and seemed to be eager to try. Nie Tian saw everything. If anyone dared to harm Rui Qianyu, he would act immediately, and he would not hold back. Rui Qianyu was at the crucial stage of the 9-color pupil's awakening, and any interference could cause the most serious consequences. After an unknown amount of time, Rui Qianyu felt that the crimson fireball had spread to every corner of the 9-color pupil's space, and the piercing pain had weakened significantly. Subconsciously, Rui Qianyu wanted to open her eyes. However, she was shocked to find that her eyelids had become extremely heavy. No matter how hard she tried, she could not lift them. This seemed like a strange illusion, but at the same time, it felt so real. It was as if her eyes did not belong to her, but they were indeed growing on her body. Open! Rui Qianyu shouted angrily in her heart, but even though she used all the strength in her body, her eyelids could only move a little. She was so anxious that she was sweating profusely, and every muscle in her body was trembling. Relax, relax, it's just an illusion. Just as Rui Qianyu was panicking and did not know what to do, a calm and indifferent voice suddenly rang in her ears, like the crisp sound of a child's wind chime, and instantly calmed her down. The person who suddenly spoke was Nie Tian. He had been paying attention to Rui Qianyu's every move, and guessed that she was in trouble, so he spoke. Open your eyes, as if you've just had a beautiful dream. Now open your eyes. Nie Tian continued speaking, like a professional hypnotist who had just completed hypnosis and was about to wake up his patient. I'm awake, Rui Qianyu said to herself softly in her heart. The next moment, her heavy eyelids finally reacted, and she suddenly opened them. Just as Rui Qianyu opened her eyes, a shocking scene happened. Swoosh! The moment she opened her eyes, a blinding crimson halo appeared. It contained a powerful force, and it directly set off endless waves of air. The entire soul-gathering blood devourer was covered in a blood-colored water curtain. Danger! Nie Tian immediately sensed the danger, and quickly activated the extreme wood jade sky armor. Bam! The next moment, the crimson halo swept past, and it almost broke through Nie Tian's extreme wood jade sky armor. The other martial artists were not so lucky. Many of them were directly thrown to the ground, and they could not get up for a long time. If it were not for the fact that they had just absorbed a large amount of blood qi, and their vitality was at its peak, this red halo would have directly taken their lives. Nie Tian stood still, and his eyes stared straight into Rui Qianyu's eyes. That pair of icy blue eyes actually had an additional layer of crimson halo. This was a very different kind of eyes. The center was icy blue, but the periphery had an additional layer of crimson halo. It was very beautiful, so beautiful that it could move one's soul. Blue eyes and red eyes. These were the first and second eyes that Rui Qianyu had activated. Chapter 274. The soul-gathering blood pool suddenly bubbled when there was no one around. Many martial artists looked at each other, wondering if their eyes were playing tricks on them. Gulp, gulp, gulp. However, in the next moment, even more bubbles sounded, and a circle of bubbles appeared in the soul congregation blood pool. It was as if something was breathing under the blood pool. What's that? Could it be some kind of ghost? Ghost your mother. How the hell did you become a giant spirit realm martial artist? Why are you scared? If you're not scared, go to the blood pool now and grab the thing inside. Many martial artists began to discuss in low voices, and they all subconsciously took a step back. Nie Tian frowned slightly, and his divine sense swept over, trying to locate the thing under the blood pool. But the thing was too fast, and it was hard to lock onto it. This fella is so fast, what the hell is it? Although there were many bubbles, they were connected, and they didn't appear at the same time. Therefore, Nie Tian guessed that there was only one thing under the blood pool. But what exactly was it? How could it be so fast? It was not much slower than the phantom snow fox that Nie Tian had encountered before. One had to know that the phantom snow fox was a spiritual pet that excelled in speed. Even among the many high-level spiritual beasts, there weren't many that could be faster than the phantom snow fox. Rui Qianyu was also carefully observing the movement in the blood pool. Even with her newly awakened 9-color pupils, she still couldn't capture the thing in the blood pool. That thing's speed was very fast, and the bubbles in the blood pool were appearing at an extremely fast speed. The other martial artists looked at the soul-gathering blood pool, and their eyes were filled with fear. They didn't know what the hell was in the blood pool. Nie Tian looked at the blood-colored bubbles in the soul-gathering blood pool, and suddenly his face changed. He suddenly realized that the bubbles in the blood pool were appearing in a regular pattern, as if they were connecting into a strange pattern. It's the aura of a spiritual array. Nie Tian's divine sense swept over, and he suddenly felt a strong aura of a spiritual array. The little thing in the water was actually activating a spiritual array. This spiritual array was clearly hidden within the soul congregation blood pool, but it was not activated. When Rui Qianyu activated her 9-color pupils, she unintentionally disturbed the thing in the soul-gathering blood pool. This thing has activated a spirit array. What is its purpose? Nie Tian frowned. There was a bad feeling in his heart and a worried expression appeared on his face. Benefactor, are you all right? Duanmu Lu walked to Nie Tian's side and asked with a frightened expression. Duanmu Weiner, on the other hand, subconsciously leaned against Nie Tian, as if seeking a safe shelter. The two siblings were inexperienced children and had never encountered such a situation before. They were smart enough to know who they could trust at critical times. If they stood by Chu Shifeng's side now, they would be seeking their own deaths. Step back! Nie Tianling shouted and waved his hand, signaling everyone to step back and keep a distance from the soul-gathering blood pool. Although he did not know what was going to happen next, Nie Tian had a feeling that it was definitely not going to be a good thing. Sensing danger, Rui Qianyu quickly flew over from the top of the soul-gathering blood pool and landed beside Nie Tian. Gurgle! 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 The soul-assembling blood pool was still bubbling non-stop, and the atmosphere had become strange. Everyone held their breath and stared at the soul-gathering blood pool, not even daring to breathe loudly. Bang! At this moment, a huge wave of blood suddenly appeared on the surface of the blood pool, as if something huge was going to rush out from the bottom of the blood pool. Boom! The next moment, a crimson figure emerged from the bottom of the blood pool. It was a 50 to 60 meters long blood-red water dragon. Walala! The blood-red water dragon broke out of the pool and created a blood wave that was more than 10 meters high, causing the entire soul-gathering blood pool to churn. Roar! The blood-red water dragon's 4 dragon claws danced in the air as it let out an angry roar. Immediately after, the surging aura formed a powerful pressure that surged in all directions. In an instant, everyone panicked and began to scatter in all directions. Oh my God, run! Don't block me, I'm a genius, let me run first. You're the one who ran first? I'm stronger than you, scram to the side. With just a roar from the blood-red water dragon, the crowd of martial artists was completely thrown into disarray. They scrambled to escape, each of them running faster than a rabbit. Who would have thought that there was such a huge water dragon hiding in the soul-gathering blood pool? Just a moment ago, everyone was still in the blood pool, refusing to come out. Nye Tian turned a deaf ear to the panicked shouts of the surrounding cultivators as he stared at the water dragon hovering in the soul-gathering blood pool. Not only was there no trace of panic on his face, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a playful smile. The blood-red water dragon was completely condensed from the blood in the blood pool, which meant that it did not have a physical body. Moreover, Nye Tian also discovered that although the water dragon had let out a roar just now, its powerful aura had nothing to do with it. The aura and pressure came from the spiritual array in the soul-gathering blood pool, not from the water dragon. It was obvious that the water dragon was just a fox pretending to be a tiger. Perhaps in the eyes of others, it looked like an angry dragon, but in Nye Tian's eyes, it was just a small loach in the shell of a dragon. Roar! The blood-red water dragon let out a deep roar again, and the spiritual array in the soul-gathering blood pool released a wave of pressure. Everyone was busy fleeing in all directions and did not have the time to care about this. In the blink of an eye, there were only a dozen people left. Among the remaining people, of course, were Nye Tian, Rui Qinyu, Mr. Z, Dongfang Du, Chu Shifeng, and a few other strong and courageous martial artists. Nye Tian looked calm and there was a faint smile on his face. His eyes were like torches as he stared at the water dragon. Finally, he found something interesting. On the forehead of the water dragon, there was a small green thing hiding. This little thing was only the size of a palm and its whole body was green, but its eyes were red. It looked like a big mouse. Obviously, the blood-red water dragon was controlled by this little thing and the spiritual array just now was also activated by it. Damn! It's actually a spirit-devouring rat. Because this little thing was too small, Nye Tian had not seen it before. Now that he saw its true appearance, he could not help but be surprised and his face froze. The spirit-devouring rat was a kind of spirit beast that had existed since ancient times. To be exact, it was a kind of monster beast because this little thing did not feed on flesh and blood, but on martial artists' origin souls. Nye Tian's rival, the Nine Serenities demon emperor Qi Wu Shaotian, had a spirit-devouring rat beside him, but its body was very large, almost 1,000 meters long, and it was unknown how many martial artists' origin souls it had devoured. The biggest advantage of the spirit-devouring rat was that even if it did not devour origin souls, it could still survive, but its strength could not be promoted. Moreover, its body size would constantly shrink. Nye Tian had not yet figured out what level of monster beast the spirit-devouring rat was. Chapter 275. Nye Tian looked at the little spirit-devouring rat, and the corner of his mouth curled up. He guessed that this little thing must have existed in the spirit-gathering blood pool, and somehow, it had figured out the method to open the spirit array in the giant spirit blood pool. Nye Tian looked at the spirit array in the spirit-gathering blood pool. It was just a rank 4 spirit array, and it posed no threat to a real powerhouse. The blood-red water dragon was just a facade, and the spirit array was also a facade. The real strength was just a little spirit-devouring rat. Good. Little thing, let me pierce your tiger's skin. Nye Tian faintly shot out a palm, and a sword chi broke through the air. Puff! The sword chi whistled through the air, and directly hit the head of the water dragon. The huge water dragon was like tofu, and with a crisp sound, it immediately became a pool of stagnant water, and fell into the spirit-gathering blood pool. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The spirit-devouring rat lost the cover of the water dragon, and revealed its original appearance, and screamed a few times in panic. It clearly didn't expect that someone would actually dare to attack such an enraged giant dragon. Its crimson eyes rolled around twice before it flicked its slender tail and tilted its head, intending to dive into the spirit-gathering blood pool. Want to escape? It's too late. Nye Tian faintly smiled, and the spirit-devouring rat's action was already within his expectations. Swish! Jian Jetian slashed out, and a mass of sword chi filled into a sword net, and suddenly wrapped the spirit-devouring rat. The speed of the spirit-devouring rat was very fast, but Nye Tian was faster than it. For this kind of predictive attack, even the spirit-devouring rat would find it difficult to escape. Squeak, 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 squeak. The spirit-devouring rat was trapped by the sword net, and its little claws frantically scratched, but it was of no use, and it began to panic. "Little guy, come over." Nye Tian ignored its cry, and waved his hand, and the spirit-devouring rat flew over. Without any hesitation, while the spirit-devouring rat was still in the air, Nye Tian shot out a soul imprint, and directly imprinted it on the spirit-devouring rat's forehead. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The spirit-devouring rat screamed, and the next moment, it appeared in Nye Tian's chaotic original coffin. The chaotic original coffin was Nye Tian's soul space, and its space attribute was different from the external space. If a martial artist wanted something from the outside world to enter their soul space, they had to carve their soul imprint on it. Soul imprints could only be placed on living things, so spirit pills and spirit weapons were unable to enter the soul space. As for other martial artists, they themselves had extremely strong soul imprints, so they couldn't be branded with other people's soul imprints, so it was impossible for them to enter other people's soul space. The 9 Extreme Chaos Beast was born from the chaotic original coffin, and it had Nye Tian's soul imprint. Currently, Nye Tian could only place a soul imprint on small spirit beasts like the Mirage Snow Fox and the Spirit-Devouring Rat. As for large spirit beasts, their soul imprints were already very strong, and it was not easy to place another soul imprint on them. Furthermore, Nye Tian's chaotic original coffin did not allow any spirit beast to enter. It had to be a spirit beast that defied the heavens, or had the potential to do so. The spirit-devouring rat was an ancient demonic beast. As long as it was provided with enough primordial spirit, it could grow to a very terrifying level. In his previous life, when Nye Tian was fighting the 9 underworld demon emperor, Qi Wuxiaoshan, he was very afraid of the spirit-devouring rat. The 1,000-meter-long spirit-devouring rat could bite the primordial spirit of the 9 extreme beasts, and even the 9 extreme beasts would suffer. Other devouring martial artists had nothing in their spiritual space, unlike Nye Tian, who had a huge coffin in his spiritual space. Furthermore, it was a coffin that was especially suitable for cultivation. When the spirit-devouring rat entered the chaotic original coffin, it immediately woke up Little Nine, who was sleeping soundly. Squeak! Little Nine looked at the spirit-devouring rat that suddenly appeared, and its 2 big eyes became even more exaggerated. It let out a cheerful cry and stretched out its little claws, pinching the spirit-devouring rat's little tail and lifting it up. Squeak, 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 squeak. The spirit-devouring rat squeaked in fear. The Mirage Snow Fox, who was standing at the side, crossed its arms and watched calmly. After all, it was just watching the show and was not afraid of things getting out of hand. The 9 Extreme Chaos Beast, the Mirage Snow Fox, and a spirit-devouring rat. Nye Tian's coffin suddenly became very lively. Nye Tian did not care about these little things, and directly blocked the sound of the chaotic original coffin. He revealed a proud smile. To be able to obtain a spirit-devouring rat was definitely a very big gain. The people around Nye Tian were already stunned, and it took them a long time to react. This was especially so for Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng. As they watched, their eyes turned red. Even a fool could tell that Nye Tian had just destroyed the blood-red water dragon and caught a green little rat. That little rat was definitely an extraordinary spirit beast. At the thought that Nye Tian had taken all the benefits, Dongfang Du and Chu Shifeng's eyes became even more vicious. They could not wait to hang Nye Tian up and beat him up to vent their anger. At this moment, Duanmu Weiner walked over and asked curiously, "Big brother Nye Tian, what was that green little thing just now?" Cough, cough. Nye Tian coughed twice and said, "It was just a little spirit pet. It's not worth mentioning." Seeing that Nye Tian was not willing to tell her, Duanmu Weiner stuck out her tongue unhappily and did not ask any more. "Look, There's a door over there. Duanmu Wan turned around in disappointment. Her eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of a door, and she cried out in surprise. Everyone followed Duanmu Waner's gaze and saw a door on the other side of the soul-gathering blood pool. This door did not exist before, so the spirit-devouring rat must have activated the soul-gathering blood pool's spirit array and activated some other mechanism. Nie Tian guessed that the door was most likely a secret passage in the underground palace. As for where it led to, it was hard to say. However, Nie Tian's main purpose in entering the ancient bloody tomb had not been achieved. He had not seen the corpse demon king yet, so he said, "This underground palace is very big. There must be a lot of good things waiting for us. I want to take a look at the front. Are any of you interested?" With that, Nie Tian smiled faintly and walked straight towards the secret door without paying any attention to the others. Rui Qianyu did not hesitate and immediately followed. Of course, the Duanmu siblings were also happy to follow Nie Tian. The others thought for a moment and quickly followed. Although Nie Tian was not the strongest among this group of people, his performance had made him the core of the group. At this time, there were still more than 10 people left in the underground palace. The others were scared away by the spirit-devouring rat's trick. Everyone followed Nie Tian to the side of the secret door. Behind the secret door was a long and narrow passage. It was only 1 meter wide and 2 meters high. It looked very crowded. Such a secret passage, once we enter, if there is any mechanism, won't we die? Nie Tian said in his heart, but he still firmly stepped forward. Chapter 276. Nie Tian's expression changed slightly as soon as he stepped into the passage. He then smiled with relief and said, "There's a gravity formation in this passage. Looks like there aren't any traps." A gravity formation was a mysterious formation that used the power of heaven and earth to increase the effect of gravity. It was often used in cultivation rooms. Martial artists had to withstand pressure far beyond their own gravity in the formation. This could train their martial bodies and make them stronger. Nie Tian had cultivated in Tyrant Cloud Academy's cultivation room for 10 days and withstood 100 times the gravity. However, he was only at the origin spirit realm at that time. Now, he was at the 7th level of the Wanxiang realm and had awakened the power of 80,000 stars in his body. He could withstand thousands or even tens of thousands of times the gravity. Knowing that there was a gravity formation in the passage, Nie Tian was much more at ease. Inside the formation, other objects would also be affected by gravity, so even if it was a trap, the effect would be greatly reduced. The others followed behind Nie Tian and walked carefully, not daring to be careless. Dongfang Du suddenly said, "Strange, why is the gravity formation in this passage so weak? It's almost impossible to feel its existence. This kind of defense is too weak." Chu Shifeng chuckled and said with a face full of disdain, "The person who built this passage is too stupid to actually use such a weak gravity array. Even a small fry who has just awakened his Yuan meridian can easily pass through." As they walked in the passage, they immediately felt that the effect of the gravity formation was extremely weak. It seemed to only have a few times the gravity effect, which was completely negligible for martial artists above the giant spirit realm. It was a bit stupid to use such a gravity formation to protect the passage. Nie Tian curled his lips slightly and raised his head to look at the tunnel in front of him. He estimated that the total length of the tunnel was about 10,000 meters. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he said indifferently, "The person who built this tunnel is not stupid. On the contrary, he is very smart. It is you who are too stupid to understand the mysteries of this tunnel." With a playful smile, Dongfang Du said, "So it seems that City Lord Nie Tian already knows the secrets of this tunnel. Please tell me about it." Chu Shifeng chimed in, "I'd like to listen too. I hope the Nie Tian City Lord can tell me the truth." The two of them echoed each other, obviously extremely dissatisfied with Nie Tian. 10,000 upper-grade origin crystals per word. Do you want to hear it? Nye Tian chuckled and said, "Ha ha." Hearing Nye Tian's words, Chu Shifeng laughed out loud and said in ridicule, "I heard that Nye Tian City Lord charges a piece of low-grade yuan crystal for every martial artist entering Heaven Luo City, and a piece of high-grade yuan crystal for every martial artist registering for the Dragon Blood martial meet." Now, he was deliberately mystifying things, actually demanding 10,000 high-grade essence crystals per word. Seems like those people were right. The Heaven Luo City Lord is indeed a miser. The others also roared with laughter. However, Nye Tian said, "It doesn't matter whether I'm a miser or not. What matters is whether you can walk out of this passage alive." With that, Nye Tian did not care about Chu Shifeng's expression, and directly sent a sound transmission to Duanmulu, who was beside him, and said, "Duanmulu, take your sister and leave this place." "Benefactor, this." Duanmulu was stunned for a moment, and looked at Nye Tian with a strange expression. Nye Tian did not explain to him, and said in a commanding tone, "Don't ask why, I'm saving you. You can't walk through this passage." "All right." Duanmulu thought for a moment, and without much hesitation, agreed, and said to Duanmu Wainer, let's go. This passage is fine." "Big brother, are you stupid? This passage only has a few times the gravity, and even Origin Meridian Realm martial artists can walk through it. We have the strength of Giant Spirit Realm, why can't we?" Duanmu Wainer shouted. Of course, she did not agree. She had already tasted the benefits of the soul-gathering blood pool just now. Who knew what was at the end of the passage? Maybe it was something better than the soul-gathering blood pool. Of course, she could not miss it. Go. For the first time, Duanmulu showed the strictness of an elder brother, and his eyes revealed a resolute determination. "Let's go." Duanmu Wainer's little face stiffened, and after hesitating for a long time, she finally compromised. She knew that every time Duanmulu showed this kind of expression, it must be a very serious situation. "Benefactor, thank you," Duanmulu said to Nye Tian, and left with Duanmu Wainer. Nye Tian nodded, and suddenly said, "I'm officially warning everyone, this passage can only be passed by martial artists with the strength of a giant spirit realm and above. If you don't have the strength, turn back now, otherwise it will be too late if you want to turn back halfway." After saying that, Nye Tian did not care about the others' reactions, and walked forward confidently. Facing this warning, everyone except for Rui Qianyu and Mr. Z was stunned. What is the Nye Tian City Lord doing? He can't be lying to us, right? I don't know, but looking at him, he doesn't look like he's lying. Since when does he look like he's lying? Just now, he said that there are 9th-grade spirit pills and 9th-grade spirit artifacts in the cave, but I haven't seen any until now. I think he's definitely bluffing, afraid that we will snatch things from him. More than a dozen martial artists whispered to each other, and finally, they could not resist the temptation, and continued to walk forward with Nye Tian. Nye Tian curled his lips slightly and sighed. Good advice grates on the ears. Just now, he was naturally not bluffing, but he really determined that the passage in front of him could only be passed by martial artists at the giant spirit realm and above. In this passage, other than the gravity array, there was also a sensory spirit array that could sense the position of everyone who entered the passage. And according to everyone's position, the gravity they endured was different too. Nye Tian estimated that the gravity pressure would double with every step forward for the people in the passage. The entire passage was 10,000 meters long. If one wanted to walk out of the passage, they must at least be able to withstand the pressure of 10,000 times the gravity. 10,000 times the gravity pressure required at least a giant spirit realm martial artist to withstand it. And more importantly, the gravity pressure that martial artists endured would only increase and not decrease. Therefore, even if someone could not withstand the gravity pressure midway and wanted to return, it was virtually impossible. This was the reason why Nye Tian told the Duanmu siblings to leave immediately. Leaving early while the gravity pressure was not severe yet was the wisest choice. The Duanmu siblings only had the strength of a giant spirit realm. 1,000 times the gravity was their limit. It was simply impossible for them to walk through the 10,000 meters passage. As for the other martial artists, Nye Tian had already warned them. Since they did not listen, then there was nothing he could do. Following that, the crowd walked forward for several hundred meters. Finally, someone sensed that something was wrong. The gravity that their bodies endured became stronger and stronger, and some people's faces were already seeping with sweat. F***ck. This father is not going. Some smart people looked at the length of the passage, weighed their own strength, cursed, and started to return.